You are you Ayaka? Pamikuka took a breath and asked in disbelief. Yes, it's me. After 8 years of absence, how can't you recognize me, Master Pamikuka? Ayaka's clear cheeks emerged with a light smile. Pamikuka seriously stared at the young girl in front of him, the familiar smile, the same hair color, everything proved her identity. Pamikuka's heart couldn't help but produce a tremendous shock. If he remembered correctly, when Ayaka left, her power level hadn't broken through 5,000. Now, it was a whole 2.85 million power level. Pamikuka had never seen a strong man, and the 2.85 million power level was too shocking. Not to mention seen, he never even heard of it. Pamikuka's trembling hand patted Ayaka's shoulder. His expression excited. Good, you did not disappoint Master's expectations. Master is delighted. As a master, he felt relieved and torn to have such an excellent disciple. He was relieved to have a good disciple, but he was torn by the fact that his disciple actually threw him out for several streets. No, it was impossible to compare several streets. Pamikuka proud of this but wanted to find a piece of tofu to smash himself. Ayaka smiled, light as a lily. Pamikuka's praise was very flattering to her. Slowly landing on the ground with Pamikuka, Ayaka recounted her experiences over the past 8 years, and Pamikuka listened attentively, nodding from time to time. After a general understanding of Ayaka's experience, Pamikuka sighed, "Your experience is really incredible. No wonder your strength has grown rapidly. The universe is really a good place to train people, great opportunities accompany the crisis. Cooler's armored squadron, the Grand Elder of planet Namek, and North Kai, these are the dangers and opportunities that many practitioners are unable to encounter." Ayaka nodded in agreement. The universe experience could make people improve by leaps but bounds and accompanied by a huge crisis. The slightest inadvertence would send the soul to hell. If not for her own powerful physique and special skills, she might have reported to hell when she met Dor. As for the Namekian Grand Elder, who could develop potential and knew North Kai's existence and how to use Kaioken, it was completely the traveler's golden finger of only for them who was familiar with the plot. Master Pamikuka, my 2 companions have also come to Planet Yardrat and are taught instant transmission by Grandma Vichy. We will stay in Planet Yardrat for a while. Pamikuka said, Auntie Vichy is powerful and proficient in instant transmission. It would be perfect for her to teach your companions instant transmission. After the small talk, Ayaka and Pamikuka took a short rest. The scorching hot plains scattered around the palpitating pressure. The pressure was as powerful as a rainbow, powerful and compelling. It was so powerful that people could not breathe, as if they were suffocating. Boom! 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 It was like a thunderbolt from the sky. The brilliant and dazzling light and rumbling explosions kept appearing, and the ground kept shaking due to the violent earthquakes. The powerful cyclone then appeared, mixed with the shocking energy spreading in all directions as if the world had gone back to the chaos period all of a sudden. In the dim and muddy vision, 2 flashes of different colors struck each other. A green and a yellow flash sometimes violently hit and sometimes quickly split the powerful speed beyond imagination. Boom! 2 figures hit each other. The sand and gravel on the ground were suspended from gravity, and a transparent shock wave swept the world in a state visible to the naked eye. The already barren plain was attacked more completely. The strong impact hit the ground, and the ground was like a loose flower pile, shaking violently. The large swaths of mud and sand were knocked into the air, covering the sky. Ayaka stopped herself and below the ever-breathing hot lava. She smiled, and her eyes kept turning to catch the orange figure in the distance. Suddenly, she grinned, her delicate body turned, and her whole body disappeared. She reappeared near the orange figure. Then waved a fist and attacked fiercely. The orange figure did not meet the attack head-on but turned sideways with a calm face, dodging the tiny fist. Hey! Ayaka's eyebrows twitched, and her body suddenly changed direction. Several key waves were sent out from her other hand. Master Pamikuka, you've been caught in a trap. Look at my key waves. Pamikuka was confused by Ayaka's attack. It was too late to dodge, so he put his hands in front of his chest. There was a huge explosion in the air, and a blinding light lit up the entire sky. The clouds high in the sky quickly vaporized and disappeared. Pamikuka was ejected by the powerful impact generated by the explosion and crashed towards the ground. Boom! The ground shook up, and the powerful impact slammed Pamikuka deep into the ground, sinking his body dozens of meters deep underground. The terrifying force directly poured into the underground rocks, causing the rock to crack and burst, like a cannonball being shot out of the chamber. The impact crater quickly collapsed and cracked and soon formed a myriad of carnage horror cracks. Ayaka floated on the collapsed ground and looked down with a stoic face. 4 months had passed since Ayaka had returned to planet Yardrat. During these 4 months, Launch and Lancy followed Grandma Vichy's teachings to learn instant transmission seriously. Instant transmission was an extremely profound secret technique of the Yardartians. Even after 4 months had passed, the girls had only learned a little and were still very far from fully mastering it. During this period, Ayaka would come to find Pamikuka sparring whenever she could. Although there was a limit to the battle, the two people's destructive power was still alarming. This barren plain had undergone countless geological changes in just 4 months, each time being destroyed to the point of lava splatter and disfigurement. Combat could stimulate the body potential, even when the increase in Ayaka's strength in these 4 months was not significant. When the strength reached her stage, it wasn't so easy anymore if there was no special chance to enhance. On the contrary, after several high-intensity combats, Pamikuka's strength was qualitatively breakthrough. It had reached 68,000 power level, a full increase of more than 10,000. Looking at the severely collapsed ground, Ayaka flew in the air. Her slender bangs fluttered with the wind, and her whole body looked calm and unhurried. Whoosh! A figure flew out of the ground and stopped at the same height as Ayaka. Pamikuka clenched his teeth, stroking his still numb arms, crystal sweat dripping down from his forehead. Looking at his disciple, he staggered a sigh. Just now, Ayaka's several key waves had actually hit his hands, and a painful sensation was still coming from his arms. Pamikuka's face flushed red, and helplessly said, "That's it for today. If I keep fighting, I'm going to be crippled." The name of this master and disciple seems to be undefined. She took out a senzu bean from his pocket and threw it at Pamikuka. The moment Pamikuka took the senzu bean, then familiarly stuffed it into his mouth and crushed it. The injuries on Pamikuka's body all disappeared, and the robust muscles kept trembling. Pamikuka clearly felt the intense power coming from inside his body. No matter how many times I use it, I still feel incredible that this little bean has such a magical effect. Pamikuka said. Ayaka patted the dust on her body and said casually, "The senzu bean is my treasure. After the catalyst of divine power, the effect is naturally not bad. Indeed, you are not a kami for nothing." Pamikuka still felt amazing and kept praising. Since the obvious breakthrough in strength, he had been in an excellent mood. When they returned to Pamikuka's residence, Ayaka went straight to her room, undressed her body, and soaked her entire body into the bath. Blowing on the soap bubbles that stuck to her body, Ayaka pondered her future itinerary. The time has passed for some time. In a year or so, the 22nd World Martial Arts Tournament will begin. After which, the Demon King Piccolo will appear, and the Earth's power level will follow a breakthrough. There is not much time left. The appearance of Demon King Piccolo followed by Piccolo Jr. instantly raised the Earth's level, after which was the Dragon Ball Z chapter. Frisia. Ayaka's eyes emerged exciting light. Ayaka had to be careful to deal with a character like Frisia. If she used the Kaioken, Ayaka was confident that she could fight Frisia to a draw, but it was impossible to win. The energy on planet Yardrat. Ayaka stood up violently. The water flowing down from the delicate surface of the skin, and then frowned, the girl's instant transmission has not yet mastered, and they can't leave planet Yardart. Forget it. I will go to patrol the north area sooner or later, it seems that I have to act alone. The next day, Ayaka proposed the idea of leaving to the girls and Pamikuka. Although they couldn't let go, they finally agreed to let Ayaka go reluctantly. Ayaka waved goodbye to them and then launched teleportation to leave planet Yardrat. Pamikuka sighed a long breath and said with emotion, "It is essential to have the heart of a strong person. The strong and resolute mindset is critical to rising to the challenge without fear of danger." He shook his head, somewhat self-deprecating. This master had become more and more distant from his disciple. Ayaka left planet Yardrat and appeared on a distant meteorite by instant movement. This meteorite was only a few kilometers in diameter. The surface was uneven, and there were countless small holes the size of a glass ball. Due to high-speed flight, a scorching airflow was constantly leaking from the small holes. This meteorite was actually an oversized energy crystal. Through heating, the energy crystal in a solid state was slowly released in the cosmic space. Where exactly did this meteorite come from? Ayaka was surprised and delighted. She hurriedly used her ki to form an energy shield to land on the meteorite. She then used the energy bound to absorb the free energy in the starry sky. Gradually, a stream of energy that the naked eye could not see converged from all directions and slowly entered Ayaka's body. The energy streams were tiny, each was less than a 10,000th of the size of a hair. However, as the energy streams continued to converge, the surface of Ayaka's skin shone with a light blue light. The crystal-clear light blue energy swam on the surface of the skin and then seeped into her body a little so that she felt a warm taste all over her body. Such a taste made Ayaka's spirit especially comfortable. At this time, her spirit was evident, as if she could feel the destination of every energy flow in her body. Oh! Ayaka let out a soft cry of comfort as her body gently moved, and crackling sounds rang out from within her body. A majestic aura emanated out, wrapping the several kilometers large meteorite firmly, causing the meteorite's flight speed to speed up several times instantly. Crack! The surface of the meteorite flooded with tiny cracks, and then the cracks continued to spread. The rock on the meteorite's surface could not withstand Ayaka's strong ki pressure and cracked. The rock fragments continued to scatter, and some tiny fragments could not withstand the pressure and instantly turned into pieces. Ayaka carried the meteorite flying aimlessly at will, experiencing months of energy pressure. The meteorite had been broken from the outside to the inside and could disintegrate at any time. Finally, with a bang, the meteorite completely collapsed, splashing debris around accelerated burst. Due to the excessive heat generated, only the core of the remaining meteorite melted and deformed and finally turned into the universe's dust. The young girl in a green long shirt elegantly floating in the universe, crystalline streams of light flowing on the surface of the skin. Ayaka opened her eyes, and her dark, bright eyes seemed to look through the starry sky. Her whole person exuded a divine and graceful aura. The beautiful eyes gradually rose to an eerie blue light. 3 million. 3 million power level. Good harvest. Ayaka smiled with relief, it was not in vain that she guarded this boulder for months. Suddenly a voice sounded in her ear, "Ayaka, can you hear me?" Ayaka was stunned. "Is it North Kai? What do you want from me?" In another high-level space, the North Kai's planet. North Kai clenched his hands into fists. "Just now, I inspected the area under the jurisdiction of the North area and found that more than 10 planet civilizations were destroyed. None of the life on them survived. Do you know who did it?" Ayaka was taken aback. "I investigated when those people have already left, so it is not very clear who did it. However, I think the ones who can destroy the planets should be those guys, the Frisia clan." North Kai said in a gruff tone. "I just contacted the girls, but they said they were learning the secret techniques of planet Yardrat and couldn't leave Ayaka. I want you to go ahead and investigate, with your strength. As long as you do not touch Frisia, you will have nothing to fear. Ayaka shuddered a little. There was a powerful feeling of wariness. Frisia. Did she finally meet up with Frisia? North Kai, give me the specific coordinates. I'll go there. North Kai took a long breath, he was distraught that Ayaka would refuse. After all, the opponent might be Frisia, who made even the North area scared. Okay, I will give you the coordinates. North Kai walked to an open space on the North Kai's planet. The upper side of which corresponded to the location of the destroyed planet. With a twitch of the tentacle on his head, a wave of the electric signal was sent out. North area, near the Thousand Snow Starfield. Receiving the message transmitted by North Kai, Ayaka tried to find the Thousand Snow Starfield location. Soon, she found the place. North Kai, I'm on my way. Be careful. North Kai instructed. As the honored North Kai, he felt incompetent as a king when he couldn't guarantee the peace of his own jurisdiction. Ayaka smiled in awe, then disappeared into the universe. Thousand Snow Starfield was a small starfield located in the heart of the North area. There were only tens of thousands of solar systems in it, and the planets suitable for the survival of life were even more scarce. It was only 20 to 30, and more than 10 of them had been destroyed for no reason. Ayaka came to the Thousand Snow Starfield and landed on a basically destroyed planet. With the broken walls, deep dead silence, in addition to the smoke of the ruined battlefield, the entire planet had been completely deserted. With a sigh, Ayaka launched an instant transmission to the next planet. According to North Kai's message, she jumped to more than 10 middle-level planets in a row, each of which had suffered a catastrophe. Ayaka appeared on a green planet with a swish. She could smell there was a refreshing and comfortable fragrance from nature. I arrived in time. The guys haven't arrived yet. Ayaka leaped up and flew along the forest to where civilization was developed. The civilization on the green planet was still in the primitive stage. The main race was distributed along the rivers and seas. Such planets were most popular among alien invaders. The primitive race was a backward civilization, narrow-minded, easier to be ruled, without paying too much cost to sell a good price. Ayaka's speed was breakneck. In the blink of an eye, she came to the convergence of several large rivers, scattered around many races. The men of the race were working hard and busy. Ayaka did not disturb them and flew alone up a high mountain to find a landing place to rest down. About a few days later, a long-awaited disc-shaped ship from outer space landed. Whoosh! The disc ship landed on the ground, and 8 sharp claws stretched out from around the ship. It was like the sharp claws of a crab sinking deep into the rock layer. Then, a group of strange-looking aliens jumped down from the ship, hundreds of them. The aliens were wearing special battle armor and had energy cannons strapped to their hands. Here it comes. On the rocky platform of the cliff, Ayaka stood up with a jolt. She moved her arms and legs, her gaze swept sharply towards the disc ship. The aliens were in full view. This outfit it's Frisia's men. However, the 3 people who appeared afterward surprised Ayaka. Those 3 figures were 1 purple, 1 red, and 1 green. The red and green figures were tall and fat, while the purple was relatively small. Surprisingly, it was them, not Frisia Force. Ayaka looked at the 3 people who walked out of the spaceship in shock, and an icy cold light flashed in his gaze. They were surprisingly Cooler's minions, the Cooler's armored squadron. Salsa, Nais, and Dor, all the Cooler's armored squadron members are all present. Don't blame me for taking you all out. Ayaka's mouth showed a cold smile, and her eyes were grimed. About 5 minutes later, one of the aliens finished probing the surroundings with a machine. Lord Salza, the planet air composition measurement has been completed. The data shows that this place is very suitable for life to live. Its civilization is very low, with power level was expected to be no more than 1000, the alien respectfully reported to Salza. Salza brushed his wrist, nodded indifferently. His green pupils revealed a cruel gaze, and a cold, fierce smile condensed on his lips. Such a low civilization is completely effortless to conquer. We don't need to do anything. Dor and Nais showed a regretful expression, hoping the opponent to be a little stronger. If they were too weak, there was no need to fight. Dor lost his interest and ordered his subordinate, conquer the planet as soon as possible. Don't drag out the time. The strategy set by King Cooler is not allowed to be violated. Yes. The alien stood up straight and answered loudly. After that, a large number of aliens rose in the air and prepared to conquer the planet. In the eyes of these aliens, Dor's orders and the other lords were the same as King Cooler's will, which could not be disobeyed. The north area was divided into several regions in the southeast and northwest. Each region was dominated by forces, warring constantly. The planet constantly changing hands was often the case. As the strongest Frieza clan who ruled behind the scenes, King Cold, King Cooler, King Frisia, ruling the eastern, southern, and northern parts of the north area. The central area was intertwined with all the forces, who wouldn't let anyone pass. This time, Cooler's purpose was to unify the central area. For this reason, he did not hesitate to send his own ace forces to take the lead, and all the planets that resist would be removed. Wait! Salza shouted in a clear and cold voice. The aliens who were ready to strike immediately stopped in their tracks. Captain, this is. Salza stepped on a rock with an icy, evil smile. Dor, King Cools is asking us to occupy this place. It's okay if those primitive natives are dead, but this fragile planet can be sold for a good price. Dor grinned. The captain was thoughtful. If they destroyed the planet's environment, they would delay King Cooler's plan. Wasn't King Cooler just wanted to occupy the area and rule it? The value of unlivable planets would naturally depreciate a lot. Thinking of this, Dor reissued the order, kill all the natives up there but be careful not to cause too much damage. Go now. The aliens obeyed the order and quickly flew in all directions. Hundreds of aliens scattered all over the planet in the blink of an eye. Let's wait quietly. Salza laughed out loud. They certainly didn't worry about the safety of the aliens. First, there were plenty of aliens like that, and second, the aliens with a strength of 500 or less could achieve a power level of 1000 after being equipped with the new energy cannon weapons, which was more than enough to deal with the natives. What a pity. The people here are actually far less powerful than those guys before. Thus, we cannot experience the thrill of battle. Watching his subordinates ordered to conquer the planet, Dor licked his lips with his tongue and sighed in an evil tone. Then, pray that you will meet a worthy opponent on the next planet. Nais said jokingly. Cooler's armored squadron was established by Cooler's collection of evil warriors from the north area. The 3 members were all aces of aces, each with terrifying strength. Even the weakest Nais was no better than the captain of the Jinya force. There were really not many strong people who could match them in the north area. Suddenly, a young girl's voice was heard. Why don't you let me be your opponent? Who? The 3 frowned. When they looked up, they saw a gorgeously dressed young girl floating in the air. Her bright, icy eyes were staring at them intently. Slowly landing, Ayaka stood opposite the Cooler's armored squadron. The breeze swept in, rolling up the dead branches and leaves all over the ground, making a rustling sound. I've waited for you for a long time. Cooler's armored squadron, today you will be destroyed here. The tone of voice was flat but revealed an unquestionable attitude. Ha ha ha. Captain, did you hear that? I'm laughing my ass off, knowing that we are the Cooler's armored squadron under King Cooler. How dare she threaten to destroy us? Doesn't she know the terror of our Cooler's armored squadron? How ridiculous. Nais laughed arrogantly with a very disdainful tone. Salza smiled wickedly, and a dark aura radiated around him. How can this backward civilization understand the terror of the Cooler's armored squadron? Such ignorance is the origin of sin. Nice, Door, treat her well. Of course, I can't wait. Door obviously did not recognize Ayaka. He moved his wrist, pressed the scouter. The beeping data appeared, and the data on the frame kept jumping. Finally. Boom. The scouter couldn't withstand the overrange operation and explode. Oh. It even exploded. It seems that the opponent is not weak. I have to play. Door said with some surprise. Although the scouter was old-fashioned, the upper limit was also several tens of thousands. Since the scouter exploded, it meant that the young girl's strength on the other side at least exceeded the limit of the scouter. Nice smiled evilly, walked up, and turned back to his companion. Door, give her to me. TSK, such a beautiful chick. I can sell her at a good price if I capture her alive. Those aristocratic bigwigs like this bite. Door nodded. It was a rare opportunity for him to get a jump on someone, and he could only sigh with regret. Human trafficking was certainly not their main business, but occasionally a side business was also possible. Ayaka raised an eyebrow, and a trace of cold severity flashed in her eyes. It seemed that she didn't put these three guys in her eye. With a cold smile, she would make them regret invading her later. Looking at Nai's, her face was icy cold. The key contained in her body exposed. Instantly, the temperature of the air seemed to drop by 10 degrees. The entire air condensed, and a strong sense of oppression swept over. Nai's face suddenly changed. He had underestimated her. This woman was not simple, and her strength was not lower than his. Salza gazed and shouted, Nai's, be careful of that girl. Her strength at least 100,000 or more. It's too late to know now. Ayaka smiled lightly. Before Nai's could react, she grabbed his battle armor. Oh no! Nai's was in a panic. He wanted to avoid it, but the battle armor was firmly grasped by Ayaka, causing him to be unable to avoid the attack. Poof! The hands emitted a brilliant and dazzling light, along with high temperature and high heat. The terrifying energy burst and instantly broke through the defense of the battle armor. There was a miserable scream. Seeing the battle aroma suit rupture, Nai's face was hideous. He was in a panic, and all the panic was not helping. He hastily roared his luck to resist. Too late. Ayaka sneered and struck. The key wave in her hand steeply strengthened several times, and the light was even more blinding. Nai's could only feel an incomparable burning sensation and intense pain from the abdomen. He could not help but yell. Boom! The key wave penetrated the body of the Nai's, making him flew into the air, where an explosion occurred. High temperature and high heat spread out to form a powerful shock wave. A few seconds later, the shock wave reached the ground, immediately rolling up the dust on the ground. Large trees were crushed and broken, and deafening loud sounds kept echoing in the ears. When the bright light and smoke dissipated, Ayaka's figure gradually emerged. At her feet, Nai's helplessly flopped on the ground. He was completely penetrated below the chest and above the abdomen, with the smell of nitrous smoke rising from his body and a large amount of green blood raging out. Nai's, am a terrifying Cooler's armored squadron how. Nai's groaned reluctantly. His consciousness gradually blurred, and he soon died. Door looked at the scene in front of him with disbelief. A horrified expression showed on his face. Had Nai's died just like that? He was a strong man with 150,000 power levels. Even compared to him, he was equal. How could he lose so easily? Door looked at Ayaka, and his gaze couldn't help but become fearful. She was able to kill Nai's easily, her strength was definitely above him. Bah! Salza spit. His face was gloomy and ugly. This was the first time since the Cooler's armored squadron was built that a member was killed right in front of his eyes. Captain. Door looked worriedly at Salza. At this point, he had to worry about the safety of his life and others' lives. Nais had learned a lesson, and it could be him next. Salza coldly snorted, his face was ugly. Dor wanted to say something, but the words stuck in the throat and couldn't come out. His body was carefully leaning towards Salza. Calm down, the opponent is nothing to fear. As long as we work together, she is not invincible. He said so, but Salza also did not dare to be careless. From Ayaka's performance just now, Salza knew that the opponent's strength was at least not worse than his. Although it was not difficult for him to defeat Nais, it seemed that he could not do as crisply as the girl in front of him. The main reason for this was to keep it safe and to quietly press the communication signal to transmit the matter here to the headquarters planet. He believed that the headquarters would soon deliver the news to King Cooler. Looking at Ayaka with a cold smile, Salza thought, she might be able to be so confident now, but it will be the end of her when King Cooler arrived. When the time came, she must be severely humiliated and abolished her ability. We could sell her to those evil heavy-mouthed alien nobles. Dor, let's do it together. We don't have to defeat her, just stall until King Cooler dares to come. Salza instructed Dor. King Cooler will come. Dor's heart shook, as if injected with infinite life force, immediately had strong confidence. With my strength and the captain's strength, isn't it a trivial matter to hold off until King Cooler arrives? However, they obviously underestimated Ayaka's strength. Ayaka and their level was not a star and a half difference. She had the full ability to exterminate them before Cooler arrived. Roar! Salza and Dor roared. Their whole body immediately erupted with a compelling aura. The yellowish airflow surged and rolled around them, and the earth began to shake and vibrate. The ground beneath his feet was hard and deeply sunk half a meter, and the rocks that could not withstand the tremendous pressure have broken and cracked to form countless deep cracks. The sky also began to change color, appearing incomparably dark, and the air pressure immediately rose. The corners of Ayaka's mouth rose, silently watching the blue-skinned yellow-haired Salza and green-skinned black-haired Dor. Do they exert their full strength? Oh, 180,000 and 150,000 power level. Outstanding power level. Unfortunately, they ran into me today. Ayaka increased her ki to show off and then stabilized at 240,000. Immediately more astounding energy than Salza and Dor appeared on the planet. The whole planet seemed to start trembling. In the distant part of the north area, Cooler's headquarters. The aliens were busy detecting the situation in Cooler's territory, constantly receiving messages from various planets. A message came from the distant center. The alien took the message, and his face turned pale when he looked at it. He then hurriedly ran up to the communication station to contact King Cooler. A huge ship was sailing in the middle of the universe. Cooler's eyes gazed coldly through the space shield. His eyes wickedly stared at the dazzling planets in the universe. At this moment, an alien in front of the console panicked. He took off his communication headset and ran to Cooler with a pale face. King Cooler, King Cooler. What is it? Cooler asked in a deep cold tone. His scarlet eyes stared intently at the alien. With cold sweat running on his head, the alien replied in a trembling voice, just now. A message came from the headquarters. The Cooler's armored squadron has encountered a strong enemy. Lord Nais has been killed, and Lord Salza sent an emergency signal. Oh. Cooler came to his senses as he sat down on the oval seat and floated in the ship. His purple lips curled in an evil sardonic grin. The Cooler's armored squadron has encountered an enemy, and they're in danger. Haha, it is really interesting. Facing the gust of cold air emanating from Cooler's body, the surrounding aliens were in a cold sweat. Cooler wasn't laughing with a happy look. He was actually on the verge of an outburst. The aliens were too scared to interrupt to avoid angering King Cooler. Check the coordinates and go immediately. Cooler gave a gloomy order. Yes, King Cooler. The aliens hurriedly replied and performed a series of complicated operations with their hands and feet. The ship turned its direction and flew towards the green planet in the center of the north area. How many years has it been since I've encountered an opponent who dares to offend me? Do not let me down. Haha. Thousand Snow Starfield, on the green planet. Salza carefully examined Ayaka. The ki emanating from the opponent made him feel great oppression. He said gruffly, "She's really extraordinary strength. This ki alone exceeds me a lot. When did such a powerful figure emerge in this universe? King Cooler should be on his way. Let's hold until King Cooler arrives." Together with Door, they attacked the enemy. In a moment, sand and stone flew, fist shadow intertwined, and a full of great destruction of the attack came violently. Ayaka was confident and smiling, swaying her body to dodge the attack easily. Although Salza and Door's attacks were swift and powerful, they could not cause any damage to Ayaka. Salza held his breath and concentrated on the strength to the limit. The speed suddenly accelerated a lot, together with Door's cunning style, the two figures intertwined. For a while, the fight erupted. Ho! A fist grazed Ayaka's body and hit the ground. The ground surface was instantly penetrated by energy, and a huge depression of several thousand meters appeared. The huge energy erupted deep in the ground. It penetrated the rocky substrate, and hot magma carrying a sour smell gushed out. The forest and the ground were all covered with searing heat. The fire started, the magma engulfed a large land area, the rivers began to steam dry and wither. The originally lush world immediately turned into purgatory on Earth. Ayaka shook her head and flashed like lightning in front of Salza. Salza was shocked. His body burst back in an attempt to pull away. However, Salza could not match the speed of Ayaka. No matter how Salza struggled, he could not get rid of Ayaka's attack. The hand shone with dazzling brilliance, and the force was as strong as 1,000 pounds. The tip of the fist carried a materialized ki that broke through Salza's shield at once. The terrifying force hit Salza's body with a wail, and Salza's arm was violently deformed. His whole body rushed towards the ground. Boom! Salza rooted deeply into the rock formation. Door was shocked to see his captain knocked down and rushed towards Ayaka with a loud cry. Ayaka had been paying attention to Door for a long time, and when she saw him rushing towards with a cruel smile on his face, she remembered that he was unbeatable many years ago. At that time, she was too weak to be forced by him and even died once. The wind and water turn, now her strength was far above Door. New hatred and old hatred were counted together, so naturally, she had to take care of him more passionately than Salza. Ayaka's body lit up with light blue ki. The majestic ki outside created countless tiny cyclones. Each cyclone was like a sharp blade, which would tear up everything in front of it. Door's body came crashing down, and in a flash, the protection on his body was broken. The sharp cyclone tore at Door's body, and great pain struck his heart. Door immediately woke up and was horrified to find his failure. Roar! He burst out the power of his body to try to break free. However, hadn't Ayaka said she would take care of him, how could she let him break free so easily? A hand firmly grabbed his arm, and the huge finger force immediately shattered the bones in the arm joints. Door blanched, then a beatable force came from his arm. His whole body was thrown high into the air, and because it was too sudden, he couldn't stabilize his body for a while. Before he could stabilize, Ayaka had already swooped up and formed a wild whirlwind under his feet. A fierce attack wind swept in and hit Door solidly. His consciousness began to blur. Creak. The sound of bones breaking was heard. Ayaka dragged Door to the ground, then grabbed him with force, and another joint was shattered. She looked at Door with a pitiful smile. One claw after another, she grabbed the joints on Door's body. Creak, creak. With a few clicks, the important joints of Door's body were shattered. Door was lying helplessly on the ground, breathing a little before passing out. Looking at Door like sludge on the ground, Ayaka shook her head. How can he fall so easily? He's not enough to play with. Aha, by the way, I have senzu beans. Senzu beans are good things. Approaching Door, Ayaka was in a happy mood. He pulled out a senzu bean, feeding it to Door. She then took advantage of his lack of reaction and beat him again, back and forth several times. For the first time, she felt how happy she was to feed senzu bean to her enemy. Being tossed back and forth by Ayaka, Door even begged to die. However, it wasn't easy to die. Ayaka had the medicine, senzu beans in her hand. It was worse than death. Finally, it was the team leader Salza who saved him. Salza scampered out of the ground and saw Door was lying in the place being constantly abused. He could not help but be furious. He rushed over with a hideous face. Without saying anything, he sent out numerous ki waves at Ayaka and took the opportunity to pull away Door. Ayaka unhappily frowned and looked at Salza. At this time, Salza cloaked and wretched. His eyes were burning with great anger, carrying the rotten Door in his hand. Ayaka sneered. Her flaxen hair swayed in the wind, and her clean face instantly became murderous. She had played enough. The foreplay was over. It was time for the endgame. The ki in her body continued to rise, 500,000, 1 million, 2 million. Gradually, the entire planet was wrapped in breathtaking ki. The powerful power of 3 million seemed to be like materializing smashed on Salza's heart. In an instant, it made Salza's face incomparably white. No, how could this happen? As desperate thoughts spread inexorably, Salza lost his power all of a sudden. A person, especially a guy like Salza who was used to kill. When he had absolute strength, he would ravage to his heart's content in the face of mole crickets, and their life was not worth mentioning in his eyes. However, when it turned another way, his fragile mind was instantly crushed by the quasi-bar of his own behavior. Salza smelled the death. The enemy's attack hadn't even started, yet he had already smelled the death. This made him very uncomfortable. Could it be that the powerful and terrifying Cooler's armor squadron of the entire universe was going to be wiped out here? No, I wouldn't allow it. Run! The thought rose in Salza's heart. Immediately, he threw Door in his hand to Ayaka and fled the battlefield quickly. Rather than both die, it was better to sacrifice one for the other to escape. Salza did not hesitate to decide to sacrifice Door. However, Ayaka did not care about the half-dead Door. Now Salza was her target. Her body flicked, and at once, Ayaka was in front of Salza. Bang! A loud sound that shocked the eardrums reverberated in the air as Ayaka kicked Salza's body. The new battle armor was immediately shattered, and the pieces were like countless shining meteors floating in the air. Ayaka. After several attacks in a row and being hit at the vital points, Salza painfully spurted blood. His hoarse and mournful voice echoed in the air. Cooler armor squadron, doomed to destruction today. A cold and merciless voice reached Salza's eardrums, and ki of despair came over him. Ayaka aimed at the wretched Salza, and with her hands together, a huge ki wave was fired out. Who? The ki wave was like a pale dragon with a terrifying aura. It came unstoppable along the way. Salza's pupils fiercely into stress needle-shaped. No. King Cooler has not. Poof. With regret and reluctance, Salza was struck by a terrifying wave of ki. The powerful ki did not have any feelings, and in the face of the absolute destruction, Salza was unceremoniously crushed into the dust of the universe. After eliminating Salza, Ayaka sighed lightly, but it wasn't over yet because Door of the Cooler Armor Squadron hadn't died yet. The previous battlefield had been completely unrecognizable, the sudden change of terrain and continuous flow of hot lava making this place like a purgatory. Door was still breathing, prostrate on the ground. His body was full of wounds, and blood kept flowing. Salza is dead, and you are the only one left in the cooler armor squadron. Ayaka announced Salza's death in a bland tone while raising the death flag to Dor. Dor's face twitched and threatened with reluctance. The cooler armor squadron won't fail easily. King Cooler already knows what's going on over here. He won't let you go. Cooler. Ayaka's eyes were shining. Her eyes can't help but narrow. Don't worry. Sooner or later, your King Cooler will also meet you in hell. Dor, don't you know who I am? Ah, of course, countless people have died on your hands, so how can you remember them all? Dor opened his mouth, not knowing what Ayaka was talking about. Ayaka shook her head and put up 2 fingers. The tips of which gathered ki to emit dazzling light. Karma is circular. It's only a matter of time. If you can't remember anything, just die in my hands. Ayaka's fingers aimed at Dor, and a beam of eye-catching and terrifying spiral sword gas spurted out. The sword through the wave. Dor was powerlessly stunned. DJVU memories came to his mind. It's you. You're all ready. The same move and the familiar hair color. Dor's memory fell into a blank as the terrifying spiral sword gas penetrated his entire body. This time, the cooler armor squadron is completely destroyed. Huh, Ayaka actually defeated the cooler armor squadron. I'm really happy. North Kai's excited voice rang in her ears. Ayaka laughed lightly. The cooler armor squadron looks terrifying, but they are just the Frieza clan's dogs. They're not my opponent. Yes, the Frieza clan is the real enemy. Ayaka, you go and annihilate those aliens to save this planet. North Kai was so excited that he rolled and crawled. The gorilla Bubbles looked at North Kai with his head tilted, and his mouth let out a woola woola cry. Ayaka nodded gently and flew towards the location of the aliens. The native people were experiencing a massacre, and Ayaka's appearance was like the savior's mythical story who appeared in time before the end of the world. She wiped off the entire enemies without much effort. She would be a legend in the future for a long time. Outer space, in a giant spaceship. The alien on the console kept monitoring the information from the headquarters, but among the complicated information, there was one message. One message about the green planet, which caused the alien to tremble with cold sweat. Not daring to stop for a moment, the alien immediately ran to the shield to report to King Cooler. Cooler sat on the oval pilot chair playing with the glass ball, staring out with a deep face. What's the matter? King Cooler, the latest news from the headquarters. The cooler armor squadron is destroyed. The alien was trembling to report. Such shocking news, they were afraid to provoke King Cooler's fury. Clang! The glass ball in his hand was crushed. The corners of Cooler's eyes were raised, and a bloodthirsty and crazy aura tumbled out. The men in the airship immediately felt a wave of nausea and uncomfortable, unable to breathe. Humph, the cooler armor squadron was actually destroyed. Ha, very impressive, ha ha ha. Cooler licked his purple lips, and a pair of scarlet pupils revealed infinite killing opportunities. How long will it take to get to the destination? Cooler asked in a cold voice. Report to the king. It will take 3 more hours. I give you 1 hour. We must arrive in 1 hour. Yes. The aliens were in a cold sweat. Although they were terrified, they still obeyed King Cooler's order and started maneuvering the ship at a super safe speed. They had to arrive at their destination within 1 hour. Puff! Puff! When Cooler's ship began to accelerate, Ayaka was flying all the way, shooting out ki waves in all directions. Each ki wave accurately killed the aliens along the way. These aliens' strength was only 500 or so. They couldn't evade Ayaka's attacks, and killing them was as easy as crushing ants. In a short time, the number of aliens killed by Ayaka was more than 100. After a few dozen minutes, more than 300 aliens were all killed. At this time, North Kai's anxious voice came, Ayaka, hurry up and leave this planet. Ayaka was startled and asked, "What happened?" "It's Cooler. I just sensed that Cooler's ship has appeared in the vicinity of the planet. Cooler's strength is too terrifying, and you are not yet his opponent. Hurry up and leave." North Kai said in a panic. "Cooler is here. It's a lot faster than expected." Ayaka froze but did not have the slightest intention to flee. "North Kai, I'm ready to fight with Cooler for a while." North Kai scolded, "Do not be foolish, Ayaka. With your strength and the Kaioken, you are only comparable to Frisia. However, Cooler is different from Frisia. He is countless times more terrifying than Frisia. North Kai, don't worry, I know Planet Yardart's secret techniques, plus some special techniques. I can get out safely even if I can't beat him. Surprisingly, I ran into Cooler, how can I retreat without a fight?" Ayaka confidently transmitted a voice to North Kai. North Kai was silent for a moment and sighed, "You are really well, then you take care of yourself and leave as soon as something is wrong. Alas, you will be finished. If there is danger, I will leave immediately. Don't worry." Ayaka finished speaking, and only then did North Kai cut off the conversation. He then cautiously stared at the location representing the green planet on the North Kai's planet. The next thing that would happen was probably the highest intensity battle in the North area. The battle between Ayaka and Cooler was not a spur-of-the-moment challenge. It was after some thought. She was now in a kind of hidden bottleneck stage, and what she needed was a high-intensity battle. In the previous battle, it was impossible to feel the battle's urgency because she was too far ahead of her opponent. Ayaka believed that if she could have a life-and-death battle with a master like Cooler, she would definitely gain some insight. Perhaps she could accumulate a thick layer of hair and become the legendary Super Saiyan in one fell swoop. "Cooler, I hope you can bring me a breakthrough." Ayaka looked up at the sky and muttered. 10 minutes later, huge, evil ki came from outer space. The sky immediately became dull and depressing. Within a short time, a huge disk ship was seen landing. What a powerful ki! Salza and the others are like a drop in the ocean compared to him. Cooler must be furious, otherwise, he wouldn't need to intimidatingly exude his ki at all times. Ayaka flew up alertly and approached the airship. The ship's door opened slowly, and the aliens in their battle armor came out in a line. They first cleared the surrounding area of obstacles. In the middle, a purple figure slowly walked down. The corners of his mouth rose, and his scarlet pupils emitted a cold, chilling light as if they were pools of blood in purgatory. "Is that Cooler?" "It's the same as in the original." Ayaka watched from afar, mentally recalling the base form of Cooler. In the anime, after Son Goku defeated Frisia, Cooler led his Cooler armor squadron to Earth to seek revenge on Goku. However, after a vicious fight, Cooler and his subordinates ended up dying on Earth. Legend had it that Cooler was much stronger than Frisia and had one more transformation ability than Frisia. Although the anime and the manga version had many contradictions and the credibility of a certain question, when Ayaka saw Cooler, she knew that the anime version was not all made up. Cooler's body was purple with the head, shoulders, limbs, and wrists covered with white sandstone armor, with a purple tail behind. His overall shape and Frisia final form were very similar, but the color was the opposite. Frisia was mainly white, with purple shoulders and wrists and ankles. Compared to Frisia's petite final form, Cooler looked a little more manly. Sure enough, Frisia was the proper man of the Frisia clan. His normal state will maintain the shape of Frisia's final form. Cooler's strength exceeds Frisia by more than a little bit. Perhaps the rumors that even Frisia does not have the fifth state transformation is true. Ayaka's face was severe. Her dark pupils gradually lit up with a ghostly blue light, and the unsighted immediately aimed at Cooler. 17 million. A total of 17 million appalling data surfaced, and Ayaka could not help but take a deep breath of cold air. As expected of the North Area's overlord, the strength is unfathomable. The power level alone showed 17 million, which is the real strength. She was shocked, but she did not flinch. Her eyes actually flashed a strong fighting spirit, and a crazy battle spirit surged to the heart. Her body was all warmed up, and at this moment, the fighting gene of Saiyan bloodline seemed to be activated. Underneath the disk ship, the alien warily debugged the detection equipment and reported a few minutes later. King Cooler, no major energy reactions have been found nearby. The opponent may have left the planet. The alien was careful. His face could not help but drip cold sweat. Such a waste. Cooler's gaze was cold. His icy gaze swept around and then sneered, "Unknown fellow, since you dare to destroy this king's forces, don't you dare to face this great king directly?" Cooler's icy key was forced towards the direction where Ayaka was. It was obvious that Ayaka had been discovered. "I've been discovered." Ayaka walked out with a helpless face. "Humph, it's a little girl. How dare you offend this great king?" Cooler narrowed his eyes. His purple lips condensed with a hideous smile and a wave of pressure preemptively. Ayaka was still okay, but the nearby alien suffered. As if struck by a heavy hammer in the chest, they immediately became difficult to breathe, and they were confused. "I'm not afraid of you, Cooler." Ayaka stood straight, an equal powerful key was released, immediately pushing back Cooler's pressure. The two key collided violently in the air. The substantial pressure was worse for the aliens, who could not even stand up and prostrated themselves on the ground. "How interesting." Cooler's eyes flashed a trace of surprise, and his face became gloomy. His tail constantly slapped the ground, snapping to break the hard rock surface. "Oh, your strength is very amazing. I can't help but want to recruit you. How about, as compensation for destroying this king's force, you defect to this king and become a subordinate of this king?" Cooler waited for a reply, but Ayaka said nothing. After a few seconds, Cooler licked his lips. "Well, you have angered this king. Even if you are powerful, this king has decided to wipe you out." The bloodthirsty killing machine was gut-wrenching. Ayaka disdainfully shook her head, she no longer had something to say. Everything needed to be solved with the fight. What was the point of talking? "Ayaka, you have to be careful." North Kai's nervous voice sounded. "Do not worry." Ayaka glanced at Cooler. That guy was about to make a move. North Kai carefully stared at Ayaka and Cooler at the North Kai's planet, not even daring to breathe loudly. "Ha!" Ayaka moved first. Her body disappeared like a ghost. She did not make an extra cover and attacked Cooler straightforward. Cooler TSK, and his eyes narrowed. He was constantly examining the surrounding area to capture Ayaka's figure. The surrounding grass and trees were in his eyes. Bang! Ayaka aimed a punch at Cooler's chest, and just at the moment of the attack, a hard claw firmly grabbed her wrist. It was so fast, but the first attack failed. She harnessed the power to prepare to get out, but it was a step too late. Cooler coldly grunted, and a huge force spurted out from between the claws, throwing Ayaka out with a violent bang. Ayaka's heart was beating so fast. Her body tried to stop, but Cooler's strength was so great that she could not stop for a moment. Her body seemed like a rapid cannonball flight, and the air around the violent friction issued a buzzing sound. Rumble. Wherever the shock wave passed, forests and rivers were stopped, and countless trees and vegetation were cut off across the waste and swept into the air. Swish. Ayaka settled down and carefully observed her surroundings, on full alert. Her eyes turning up and down, left and right. Suddenly, she felt Ki approaching her. She turned back around, only to find that Cooler had appeared behind her at some point. Ding! In the nick of time, Ayaka used both arms to block Cooler's steep blow. A huge force came from both arms, accompanied by sharp pain. Ayaka flew down towards the ground again. Poof! The body stopped only a few meters away from the ground. Ayaka's hands emitted a light blue ki cannon, using the recoil to rapidly fold back and fly towards Cooler. Swish swish swish. The two finally started to fight. In the sky, lightning and thunder, fist shadow intertwined, ki wave overflowed, all kinds of earth-shattering sound constantly came. In just a few seconds, Ayaka and Cooler had exchanged countless times. However, Ayaka's experience was not as many as Cooler's, and gradually, she fell behind. Heavenly Fist. If she didn't use the Heavenly Fist that had evolved from the Kaioken, she would definitely not be a match for Cooler. It was a combination of the Power Burst bonus of the Kaioken and the Thunder Shock surprise. It was a super powerful move among the first class. The ki on her body increased violently by 1.5 times. The Heavenly Fist was the same as the Kaioken, except for the basic doubling fist, which was 1.5 times the power level. Everything else was directly multiplied by the times. A blue crystal light surrounded her hands. After using the doubled Kaioken, Ayaka's power immediately doubled, reaching a power level of 4.5 million. However, it was still far from Cooler's 17 million. If not for Cooler's teasing attitude, Ayaka would absolutely already be ravaged brutally. However, Cooler was the same as Frisia. The great pride of the Frisia clan made them superior. They did not even have the slightest idea of killing the enemy in their minds and always liked to mock slowly, little by little. This was a nasty habit. Twice Heavenly Fist. The ki rose again, and the furious power rolled up like a hurricane. A faint and invisible yellow ki burns up around the body, making Ayaka's whole body look unreal. 4 times. Once the quadruple Heavenly Fist came out, Ayaka's power level reached a shocking 12 million, which had reached the upper limit of the power level of the Kaioken. The increase in power level from performing higher fist techniques was already limited. However, facing Cooler, 4 times the Heavenly Fist was not enough. 7 times. 9 times. Ayaka continued to increase her output. In the end, Ayaka stopped at 11 times Heavenly Fist. The 11 times Heavenly Fist brought Ayaka an increase of just over 16 million, but it was barely enough to fight against Cooler's 17 million power level. What kind of fighting techniques is this? How can your power level soar so much at once? Cooler looked at the girl surrounded by ki with some surprise. In the blink of an eye, the opponent's power level doubled and doubled again, and it was not much different from his. What an interesting girl. There is actually someone like you in the universe. It seems that this king has to kill you. An infinite killing opportunity surged in Cooler's heart. Such a person must be removed as soon as possible. Finally, Ayaka's power level increased to the extent that she could fight with Cooler. Feeling the surging power, Ayaka's confidence grew. The corners of her mouth rose, and strong battle intent flashed in her eyes. Breathing steadily, and her heart rhythm was in order, Ayaka adjusted to the state. Hawking left a lightning bolt in place, she rushed towards Cooler as quickly as she could. There was a booming sonic explosion, and in a moment, she was in front of Cooler, followed by a kick full of fierce power. Cooler turned his upper body sideways to avoid the powerful attack, but the sharp whirlwind of fierce power still cut through Cooler's abdomen like a blade, leaving several scratches. Cooler's face was gloomy, and his scarlet eyes were becoming eviler. No one had dared to fight him for years, let alone left marks on him. With his whole body's ki soared, Cooler's surroundings ignited orange-red ki flames. The sky changed color all of a sudden, and the clouds disappeared into thin air. The gloomy atmosphere was filled with a sense of oppression. At the bottom, those aliens who followed Cooler trembled and had long been pressed by the ki. Ayaka and Cooler looked away from each other. One yellow and one red, 2 appalling groups of energy stand facing each other. The light wind blowing rolled up the sand and dust, withered leaves fluttering with the wind. The fierce breeze turned into a storm, and the silent battlefield was like the end of the world, shrouded in creeping fear. Creak. The huge wind snapped a branch, a slight sound came. Ayaka and Cooler coincidentally acted. The body frantically sprinted and immediately launched a fierce attack on each other. For a while, the sound of fists and feet striking each other was incessant, and the two blurred figures kept flying and winding up to attack. Ho! Ayaka kicked Cooler's arm with force, and the surging force was wrapped in crystal shimmering lightning light from the leg. Cooler sneered, his hand forcefully blocked Ayaka's attack. The fluorescent lighting was stopped by a wall of air, emitting a squeaky thunder. His body flickered, and Cooler's cold, gloomy face appeared in front of Ayaka. With a pair of bloodthirsty eyes staring coldly at her, Ayaka's face changed slightly, and her body moved quickly out of Cooler's sight. What a strange trick. This king is getting more and more eager to kill you. Cooler's cold voice came from behind her, and a slight shock flashed through Ayaka's heart, but her body had already reacted almost instinctively. Ayaka put her hands together and constantly waved towards the back. There was spiral sword ki, accompanied by lightning, and thunder constantly attacked Cooler. With Ayaka as the center, thousands of long and narrow sword ki like countless floating petals, slowly scattered, and under the control of a force, violently accelerated towards Cooler blast. Cooler eyes were sharp. When he saw the spiral sword ki coming, his face trembled, and several red flashes swept out from both eyes. The red flashes contained terrifying energy that cut through the sky like a laser. Soon, two very different energy collisions issued a boom sound. Ki wave overflowed everywhere, hitting the ground exploded a huge bright spot. The ground was constantly shaking, mountain peaks, forests, a large piece of destruction. Cooler's body moved extremely fast, instantly altering countless positions. The distance between him and Ayaka was getting shorter as he was about to catch up. At this time, Ayaka's eyes emitted blue light. A few strands of vital energy filled the brain, making her mind unusually sensitive without missing a beat to capture Cooler's figure. The unsighted, in addition to observing the opponent's energy, also enhanced the user's battle awareness. After capturing the opponent's figure, it would calculate the most feasible attack. When the unsighted reaches the extreme or was very familiar with the opponent, it could even anticipate the opponent's possible attack before the opponent's action. This is the time. Finding the right position, Ayaka swung her fist in a horrific blow. Cooler also swung his fist to meet it. Boom! The two fists let out a violent crash, and the wild energy swept a shockwave in all directions. In an instant, the two blasted back countless distances, then continued to launch powerful attacks. Bang bang bang. Fist shadow intertwined. Within a second, the two exchanged countless times. Each time they exchanged blows, they quickly separated after attacking. Because they were so fast that the naked eye could not capture them, their figures could no longer be seen in the sky. What strength! Ayaka descended to a rock shelf, frowning and calculating. The high intensity of the battle had made her arms a little numb. The long-term maintenance of the Heavenly Fist's execution was also a great burden on the body. Although she relied on her abnormal physique and the cells constantly repaired the body, her repair speed was still a bit slow compared to the degree of injury. Cooler's strength is beyond imagination. It's almost impossible to defeat him, but that's what makes it interesting. Ayaka's aim wasn't to defeat him. Right now, she didn't even have the luxury of beating Cooler. The reason why she was fighting with him was to seek a breakthrough for herself. Cooler was the slightly stronger person in the entire universe. The most suitable to be a perfect test stone. Ayaka felt like her entire being was about to boil over. Ayaka suddenly felt very strong ki, and it was rising rapidly. What a strong ki. It's Cooler's ki. Not good. He actually ran high into the air. Looking up haughtily, she saw two dazzling suns hanging in outer space. One was a star, while the other was a huge ball of energy. Ayaka's face tightened, and her jaw dropped. Death wave. Does Cooler want to destroy this planet? Ayaka immediately recognized the huge red ball of energy called the Frieza clan's big move Death Wave. In the original story, Frieza was using this move to destroy planet Vegeta and planet Namek. In the anime, Cooler also used this move against Son Goku. But this move was often made in the case of recklessness. It was important to know that even Frieza clan couldn't freely stay in the vacuum and oxygen-free environment. Did Cooler not care about the consequences? Even if Cooler could survive in space, it would be a question of returning from the universe. For Ayaka, of course, these were not problems. She could survive in space without any pressure due to her uncanny ability, and instant transmission allowed her to go wherever she wanted. So she also understood one thing: to defeat Cooler, the best solution was to drag him into the universe. And then use instant transmission to generate an attack on him. However, in that case, thousands of lives of the entire green planet would have to be buried with him, and this point was not in line with Ayaka's quasibar. Let's fight. Ayaka gritted her teeth. To keep the planet from being destroyed here, she could only desperately carry this death wave. Ayaka stood on the rock shelf. Her eyes tightly closed up, and her whole body emitted even more terrifying energy. 12x Heavenly Fist. There was skyrocketing ki rising from the ground, and the suffocating oppressive feeling spread out in all directions. The ground began to crack, and the entire rock shelf was collapsed in a flash. Ayaka stood in the cracked rocks, wrapped in burning ki. Glittering white and beautiful arcs of lightning from the hands began to spread, gradually wrapping the entire body. Surrounded by thunder and lightning, her long hair was lifted by the powerful energy generated by the whirlwind. Her clothing also followed the flashing arcs of electricity. Ayaka looked so dashing and majestic. She held her breath and slowly separated her hands, and two balls of bright thunder wrapped around her hands. She opened her eyes, a ghostly blue light flashed, and Ayaka looked up into the sky. In the outer space, close to the universe space, Cooler slanting down. He sneered at the emerald green planet and a huge red ball of energy at the top of the finger, emitting terrifying energy. Humph, be good and die along with the planet. Death Wave. With a stroke of the fingertip, the huge red energy ball was commanded to smash towards the planet. The energy ball penetrated the atmosphere with a loud snorting sound. The atmosphere along the way became split like a mirror. It was instantly smashed out of a hole. That was a huge sphere of energy coalescing with a diameter of 1,000 meters. Witnessing the death wave descending from the sky, a cold, stern luster flashed through Ayaka's dark blue pupils. She manipulated the bright thunder in her hand and hurled it at the death wave. Heavenly Fist. A blindingly bright light flew out from her hand as if a phoenix with wings spread out and ready to fly. It rose into the sky with a proud aura and bright thunder. Later, Ayaka manipulated another ball of thunder in her hand and shouted, "Heavenly Thunder Shock Surprise." Seemingly accompanied by the roar of the divine dragon, the glittering thunder was like flying and raging pale dragon, emitting sinuous and twisting lightning, rushing towards the sky and roaring at an incredible speed. The two terrifying thunderbolts generated by two great moves, the Heavenly Fist and the Heavenly Thunder Shock Surprise, went against the wind with unstoppable momentum. Breaking through the sky and soon collided head-on with the death missiles. At this moment, time seemed to have stood still. A huge bright light burst from the impact, and the whole planet lit up with flares. A visually tremendous shock wave was generated, spreading out rapidly in all directions, and the next moment a deafening explosion resounded through the world. North Kai in the North Kai's planet was in a cold sweat, nervously following the battle on the green planet. His two tentacles kept trembling, chanting, "Block it. It must be blocked." Ayaka also paid attention nervously. With a slightly tired look on her face, her breathing was a little heavy. The two major moves just now had used up too much ki in her body, and if she couldn't block Cooler's death wave, the next battle would be tough. The energy contained in the death wave was undoubtedly powerful, but Ayaka's two thunderbolts were also extremely terrifying. The terrifying scene generated by the two's collision was as violent and volatile as the heavens opening. The sky was torn into a patchwork, forming a vacuum mass, just like a broken mirror. As the momentum of the big impact gradually subsided, the destructive impact of the hedge gradually dissipated. The air was still filled with a sour smell, but the thin mass of gas divided the azure sky into two large parts, as beautiful as a dream. Below, Ayaka, who managed to block Cooler's death wave, gasped and breathed heavily. That was close. Luckily it was blocked, otherwise, the planet would have been in danger. North Kaiser wiped his sweat with his mind unsettled. His nerves, which had been tense, finally relaxed. Ayaka's gaze firmly locked high in Cooler, but her heart quickly calculated. As the strength continued to rise, the destruction generated during the battle also continued to rise. Generally speaking, the ordinary planet could not support the collision's full force between the two powerful people. Not to mention the destruction of the planet in one blow, it was effortless to make the species on it extinct. We must move on to other planets. This idea welled up from her heart, and Ayaka made up her mind to implement it. Let's lure Cooler to outer space. Although Frieza clan can survive in the universe, I'm afraid that the movement will be affected to a certain extent. The vacuum conditions may be beneficial to me instead. Ayaka's ki was weaker than before, and her eyebrows showed a bit of fatigue. However, the ki around her was still burning. Although she also understood that she could only fight wisely against Cooler, and not by force. The use of small cleverness might give her hope of victory, but she would definitely end up losing the battle first if she kept on carrying on. With a single thought, Ayaka's whole body was revitalized, and a rapidly rotating wind power rose from the bottom of her feet. Lifting her tiny body up and fiercely rising into the sky, the wind whistling in her ears. She did not fly towards space first but flew towards Cooler's disc-shaped spaceship at an incredible speed. With an instantaneous shift, she appeared in front of the spaceship. With a boom, the whole spaceship was penetrated by her with a single blow. Swish swish swish. Numerous figures intertwined and surfaced, and those aliens were immediately disembodied. After completing this, the corners of Ayaka's mouth smiled faintly. Then she appeared a few kilometers in front of Cooler with a teleport. Cooler sneered at Ayaka, who was not far away. His purple tail kept flicking, and his finger bones made a crackling sound. Tisk, tsk, tsk. The next step is not so easy. Accept the punishment of this king. Cooler's cold, piercing voice came from thin air. His voice seemed extraordinarily gloomy. His mouth did not even mention his resentment against Ayaka for destroying his ship and killing his subordinates. Ayaka's expression remained unchanged, and a trace of disgust flashed on her face. Why was Cooler the same as Frieza in the original story? There was so much nonsense. Did Frieza clan always talk nasty? Worthy of the race with the name of Frieza clan. The indifference and ruthlessness had been deep into the marrow. I am afraid that killing your subordinates cannot completely anger you. In your opinion, how many of those subordinates do you want? She wondered what the reaction would be when she killed Frieza in front of him. Thinking of Dragon Ball Z when the Frieza androids was split into chunks by the Saiyans, Frieza's father didn't seem to be touched by much anger and even wanted to take that Saiyan as his son. Cooler indifferent eyes stared at Ayaka, not affected by what she said. The cold expression did not change. The corners of his mouth barred. It looks like you know a lot and even knows about our Frieza clan. The Frieza clan was extremely rare in number, and very few people in the entire universe knew of its existence. Surprisingly, she was able to shout out the title of Frieza clan accurately. Cooler suddenly developed a hint of interest. Does it mean that you are also a member of some rare race? Ayaka's eyes dripped, thinking that if the Saiyans were considered a rare race then, she was, indeed, a member of a rare race. TSK, but no matter which race you are a member of, you are doomed to die today. Cooler's gaze was cold, and huge energy flashed in the pupils of his eyes as if it would burst out at any moment. Ayaka had some faint disappointment. At this moment, she would rather fight with Frisia. Although he was just as evil and ruthless, at least Frisia was a young man in the Frieza clan. Young and vigorous, not as cold as Cooler. Secretly she turned her body and then slowly flew towards outer space. Naturally, Cooler wouldn't let her go, so he leapt to Ayaka. Phew! With an instant transmission, Ayaka wasn't blocked but appeared further away. Oh! Surely it's a magical skill. You used this move just now, right? I'm really getting interested. Cooler smiled grimly. His body turned into a stream of light, and in a moment, he was next to Ayaka again. Cooler waved his fists with both hands. The chaotic and rampant ki surrounded his left and right. As soon as the light stopped, countless sharp blades came mercilessly at Ayaka. Ayaka was too late for using the instant transmission. She hurriedly dodged back and forth by dancing her body lightly and did not tangle with Cooler. Her body accelerated away from the green planet in the dodge. The vacuum environment makes Cooler action a little uneasy. The attack action obviously began to wander. Damn! This little b** tch actually hit this aspect of the idea. Cooler, who quickly understood Ayaka's intentions, was extremely angry. What he hated most was someone who dared to tease him. Damn it! Cooler's feet straddled forward, and his large tail swung in the air, leaving several streaks of shadow in the vacuum. By the time he left the spot, he was already in front of Ayaka. Pow! He punched Ayaka hard, and Ayaka only felt her arms tingling. Her body was already like a meteorite moving at high speed, flying rapidly in the direction of the back to the green planet. The danger was sometimes an opportunity, taking advantage of the body moving deeper into the universe. Ayaka took the chance to speed up and escape with all her might towards the deeper. Cooler sneered and pursued closely. Ayaka seized the opportunity to make a wide range of instant transmission. This time it was enough to leave Cooler behind a solar system distance. To ensure that they were far enough away from the green planet, Ayaka lured Cooler in a short distance. Moreover, to ensure that Cooler wouldn't lose her, she specially released powerful energy fluctuations to serve as bait. Sure enough, it didn't take long for Cooler's figure to appear in view. Then there was another long-distance teleportation. After several lures, Cooler was finally lured to a deeper universe. Finally, the two landed on an asteroid belt in an uninhabited star system. This is the most suitable battlefield. With her feet on the hard meteorite, Ayaka looked at Cooler intensely. Although Cooler was somewhat affected by the vacuum environment, his superb strength allowed him to adapt quickly. Landing opposite Ayaka, Cooler licked his purple lips, and his whole body exuded an icy and evil aura. It really is the ideal tomb, luring me over just to fight here. Cooler's cold voice was like a special electric wave. Although there was no air present, the sound was truly transmitted into Ayaka's ears. Without making a sound, Ayaka's figure abruptly disappeared and began to move at a fast pace. The corners of Cooler's mouth grinned as he stretched out his fingers to the void and kept sweeping. In a moment, the crimson beams of light closed into a dense net, blocking the entire void firmly. The muffled sound of puffs tearing the calm space. The blue arc of electricity cut through the void, and the red beam of light was destroyed like a crumbling. Ayaka's beautiful and attractive body suddenly appeared. Her arm formed a knife, and with a sharp chi, the momentum like a broken bamboo to meet Cooler. Cooler's face changed slightly, hastily waved his hand to meet the attack. The sharp chi flooded with terrifying lightning struck his arm, and the sudden chaotic electric current threw the arm into the body. Cooler was in pain, his face was a bit distorted, and his arm was sore and weak. Cooler instantly knew that something was wrong. His whole body burst out, but Ayaka had already seen the right moment. She kicked across the foot, and a huge force came out from her leg. She kicked Cooler hard into the meteorite. Boom! Like a cannonball hit, the meteorite haughtily smashed out of the human-shaped crater, fierce force inside the meteorite exploded, and the meteorite clicked and clicked to produce countless cracks. Boom! The meteorite was blown to smithereens. Cooler's arms and legs were braced, and the stirring energy wrapped him tightly, with shallow scratches on the surface of his body. Damn you! I'll break you into pieces! Cooler roared in anger. Although it was a moment of carelessness, King Cooler was wounded by that nobody. A huge death wave rose from his hand and was thrown in all directions towards the asteroid. Invisible fluctuations in the universe to conduct, dazzling bright light in the asteroid belt lit up. Snap! In the burst, countless meteorites of different sizes will be destroyed under the death wave. Ayaka carefully lurked behind a meteorite, palpitating her chest. Fortunately, I dodged quickly. Cooler is crazy, how can he have more ki to use? How much ki did it take to perform a big move as he did so aimlessly? Cooler finished venting. The anger in his chest gradually calmed down, and his gloomy eyes searched for Ayaka's figure. Behind the meteorite, Ayaka bided her time. Her left hand lit up with an emerald blue light, and a long sword with a brown scabbard and golden hilt appeared in her hand. The body of the sword shines snow-white cold light. At the end of the hilt, there was a golden star pendant like a bright pearl. This was precisely the divine sword forged by the divine dragon Purunga, which was in tune with Ayaka's soul. Cooler, I can give you a great gift. Ayaka said with a cold smile as she concealed the appearance of the divine sword. The silent starry sky was suspended with colorful stars. The distant stars burned like fireballs, and the blazing energy irradiated the entire star system. In the inner ring of the star system, Cooler's purple figure stood there with two blood-red colors under the eyes, particularly fierce. Cooler examined the surroundings but could not find Ayaka's figure. Suddenly, Cooler's eyes were certain. His face was fierce as he waved a laser-like energy beam in his hand. His entire body flashed rapidly, instantly coming in front of Ayaka. How dare you hide behind a meteor? Let's see where you can run. The corners of Ayaka's mouth wryly a moment. Her whole body haughtily disappeared. Cooler was astonished, how could he not find her figure? Of course, it was because Ayaka used instant transmission. With Cooler's eyesight, he couldn't catch the trajectory of instant transmission. Cooler, over here. Ayaka lightly smiled. Her body appeared in the back of Cooler. The golden longsword in the hands emitted the silver-white cold light, smoothly wrapped in a very high-energy swing down. It's not good. Cooler alert back. He saw a longsword attack. It was the sharp cold light that made his whole body tremble. At the critical moment, Cooler pressed his teeth and turned his body with his superior reaction power, B*****, how will this king be killed by you? The golden longsword swung down. The sharp blade was unstoppable and solidly cut on Cooler's body. Poof! The purple tail was cut off, and Cooler roared of pain. His eyes were bloodshot, looking unusually painful. Ayaka put away the longsword. Once again, she launched a horrific attack. Various techniques and key waves were used to hit Cooler's body. The earth-shattering explosion erupted, forming a chaotic zone hundreds of thousands of meters in diameter at once. The violent shock pushed the asteroid belt to roll up the violent cyclone, the center of the cyclone's brilliant, dazzling light emitted in all directions. Ayaka panting, resting on a meteorite. Her eyes fixed on the center of the explosion. Such an explosion, even the extraordinary powerful Cooler would be seriously injured. The asteroid belt gradually subsided, and the purple figure of Cooler appeared in the starry sky. His body was pitiful looking. His long purple tail had been cut off. His sandstone white chest armor was covered with cracks, especially his head and upper and lower skin, which were basically intact, with blood gushing continuously. Is he not even dead? Ayaka looked on in astonishment. North Kai on the North Kai's planet had a cold sweat, he's so strong. What a nightmarish existence. Note about Frieza and Cooler's power level. The power level of Dragon Ball Z and the anime version of the two was more than 100 million. For example, Frieza had 530,000 in the normal state, 1.5 million after first transformation, 4.5 million after second transformations, and reached an outrageous 120 million after third transformations. Personally, I think I should make a change here. In the Dragon Ball Ayaka saga, Frieza would be set at around 15 million, and would not reach 120 million. This setting change actually didn't affect the later plot, because the original Son Goku used dozens of times Kaioken to barely equal Frieza. Through the breakthrough for the Super Saiyan, he would finally completely suppress Frieza. Frieza's power was artificially suppressed, it seemed that the personal 10 million data was more reliable. It was necessary to make changes if Son Goku fought Frieza in planet Namek, but it was not necessary to make dozens of times Kaioken. The number of times could be appropriately reduced, and then the Super Saiyan state would suppress Frieza. Because of the power level description of this power after the events of Frieza gradually out of the main set of Dragon Ball, so the original plot after Frieza also basically did not adopt the power level of this statement. Therefore, this modification of Frieza and Cooler combat power value, in fact, did not have too much impact on the late enemy. In the original story, Goku's power level before and after fighting Frieza was very weak. Before Frieza, Son Goku only had about 100,000, and after fighting Frieza until the appearance of androids, it reached several hundred million. This was before having only one enemy Frieza. I personally felt that a lot of drama could be added. After returning to Dragon Ball Z, the power would overlap with the original story. In other words, it was just subdivided battle zone, which was originally belonged to Frieza, into several battle zone. Ayaka had expected the tenacity of Cooler's life force. In the Dragon Ball Z chapter, Frieza was a reference, but seeing such a strong life force presented in real life, still brought a strong shock. Looking somewhat wearily at Cooler, Ayaka knew that his power had been consumed too drastically. North Kai, are all the Frieza clan's life force this tenacious? She hurriedly asked North Kai. In the original story, Frieza was defeated by Super Saiyan Son Goku's transformation, and only half of the body was still alive. Later, he even turned into an android. No wonder their numbers were so rare. If they are as many as the original Saiyans, they would have dominated the entire galaxy. There were specific laws in the other world. If the race was strong, the life cycle was long and scarce, and if the race was weak, the life cycle was short, and the number was huge. North Kai wiped his sweat, and his jaw was shaking disobediently. He said awkwardly, to be honest, I've never seen Frieza clan in a near-death state. They are too terrifying and have been ruling the planets of the North area strongly. For countless years, no one has been able to strike them to a near-death state, so I don't know how tenacious their life force really is. Nodding slightly, Ayaka understood. Frieza afraid of the legendary Super Saiyan, so he did not hesitate to destroy the entire planet Vegeta. This showed that in the records of the Frieza clan, there should be a description of the Super Saiyan. In fact, whether there really was a Super Saiyan, even the Saiyan also held a skeptical attitude. This indicated that the long passage of time was enough to wash away the traces of history. Even if there was a Super Saiyan in the Saiyan race, it so happened that Frieza clan had also seen the power of the Super Saiyan, but the only thing that remained today was the legend. Ayaka returned her gaze to Cooler. Cooler was unbearably stopped in the midst of the meteorite debris. His bloodshot eyes filled with a crimson, his forehead meridians fluttered, and his face was unusually distorted by the tremendous pain that made him clench his teeth. His face was hideously searching, and his beast-like ferocious gaze revealed a bloody cold light, like a hungry cheetah hating to tear his opponent to pieces immediately. Deeply gasping for air, Cooler gritted his teeth and cursed. As an adult member of the Frieza clan, he had more powerful strength than Frisia, and Ayaka's behavior had completely enraged him. The cold gaze swept around, and Ayaka's figure was soon found. Cooler black face twisted wild laugh, damn be asterisk tch. You actually forced this king into such a situation. I'm pleased. But next, this king will be at full strength, feel the despair of the end. Being stared at by Cooler's icy gaze full of killing, a chill rose from Ayaka's back. She was busy mobilizing her remaining ki to drive away from the discomfort. At the same time, the energy bound was fully opened. Even if it was only a drop in the bucket, it was better than not having a single replenishment. What a terrifying gaze. It actually gives a feeling of trembling heart and soul. Ayaka murmured. The wounded Cooler seemed even more terrifying, as if something was about to break out of his body. At this moment, Ayaka felt a thrill. She knew that Frisia clan liked to play with their opponents, and it was a bad habit. However, it was also a habit that had developed over time because they were so high that there were hardly any opponents who could fight them. Aha! Cooler clenched his hands into fists and roared in pain. The muscles of his entire body began to tremble, let you see the strongest state of this great king. The vast energy gushed out, the bones and muscles of the whole body seemed to be replaced with life, and a sticky ball like a heart, pounding, vibrated. Each vibration made the energy rise continuously. The muscles continued to grow, the cracks in the sandstone shell on the chest became more, and finally. Crack. There was a crack, a new layer of white gauze shell regrown. Cooler's skin and crust seemed to have fallen off his body, and new skin soon grew. He roared madly. His face was hideous and terrifying, accompanied by an incomparably terrifying breath. The hard armor on his head began to deform, protruding towards the back of his head, slowly growing into 4 sharp horns. Wow! A brand new purple tail was regenerated, with long white sharp spikes at the end. The madly rising ki formed a thick cyclone that wrapped him firmly like a hurricane. The outer hurricane winds were swift, sweeping the entire starry sky like a storm. Surrounded by an outward impact to tear and push. Ayaka was floating in the void with a hand to block the chaotic energy storm. The rising power from afar made her face a little pale, as if 1,000 pounds of weight firmly pressed on the chest, the pressure multiplied. Boom! With Cooler as the center, the hurricane wind violently spread in all directions. With a powerful shock wave, all at once cracked all the meteorites and debris within the range of tens of thousands of meters, while all the dust within the range of hundreds of kilometers was blown away. Hundreds of thousands of meters range of open space appeared. The only 2 people left in the void were Cooler and Ayaka. Cooler stood in the center of the entire void with the sharp white horns, childish purple skin, a new tail with a sharp edge. A white hard shell covering the shoulders and legs, and this was the final form of Cooler. Everything seemed to be reborn. The exciting and surging terrifying power slowly spread out from the body, bringing an inexplicable shock to the whole world. Ha 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 ha, a brand new power, and surging ki. It's been a long time since I've wielded my full strength like this. The hazy, gloomy voice came out through the hard armor on his mouth, and Cooler's ferocious gaze was full of cold intent. Ayaka felt cold all over her body. A heavy killing intent enveloped her body, she could not move half a cent. Her heart trembled, and her face was filled with horror, a bright blue light flashed in her eyes. Cooler's power level was reflected in her eyes, 51 million. She was not a match for 51 million. Ayaka did not have time to think. Cooler came to her with a whoosh. Ayaka's face changed dramatically, and she tried to move her body with her teeth as she frantically pushed the little power left in her body. However, Cooler's speed was too fast for her to respond, and the hand with the terrifying power had already slapped her left shoulder solidly. A huge pain struck her. Ayaka immediately understood that the bones in her shoulder had been broken. The powerful force knocked her entire body out heavily, sliding like a meteor, shattering all the meteorites along the way in the blink of an eye. Struggling to bring her body to a halt, she couldn't have time to think before Cooler came over with another flying diagonal kick. Instant transmission. In the nick of time, Ayaka immediately launched instant transmission, avoiding Cooler's heavy blow. Her body appeared in the starry sky tens of thousands of meters away. That was close. Ayaka wiped her sweat. The sharp pain coming from her shoulder made her face look incomparably pale. What is this strange way of moving again? Cooler's cold voice came next to her ears, and Ayaka's face changed dramatically. She saw that Cooler was already standing across from her. His hands were on his chest, and he calmly looked at himself. The gap is too big. There is no way that I can be his opponent now. Ayaka understood the gap between her and Cooler. The final form of Cooler was numerous times stronger than her. It was not a gap that the Kaioken or the Heavenly Fist could bridge. Super Saiyan. How can I transform into a Super Saiyan? The most powerful form in the Saiyan legend, the form that makes Frieza clan shudder. Ayaka's thoughts quickly dispersed. The original story, Son Goku used the anger and despair generated by Krillin's death to break the boundaries. However, I don't yet have the feeling that Son Goku had at that time. Ayaka pondered. She only felt that her pressure was not huge enough, bearing several life-preserving stunts. She could not experience the immediate threat of death, and extreme despair, which made the barriers to transforming into a Super Saiyan was invisibly thickened. She then tried to interpret from another angle, thickening. Yes, she had a more full and thick foundation than Son Goku. As long as the opportunity to transform into a Super Saiyan arrived, she exceeded Son Goku's state far when he transformed. Son Goku had a stressful transformation. He transformed with anger, relying on his anger to enjoy the Super Saiyan power in advance. His energy base was still somewhat insufficient. If she wanted to really become a Super Saiyan, anytime, anywhere, free to transform, she needed constant consolidation and enrichment at a later stage. If she transformed into a Super Saiyan, there was no vacuum in between. She would have skipped the semi-Super Saiyan stage and arrived at the real Super Saiyan level. After thinking so much, Ayaka was anxious. Even if she could transform into a semi-Super Saiyan now, she could at least put out the fire in an emergency, or even more directly to defeat Cooler. But now, I don't have the conditions to transform. Ayaka's mind turned quickly, while Cooler's attack did not stop. Cooler moved extremely fast. In a flash, he came to the side of Ayaka. His body sank, his legs bent and attacked fiercely, and the ki on his legs burned like lava, rubbing out a whoosh of muffled sound in the vacuum. She dodged, but her right hand also flashed golden light, and a divine sword appeared. She was holding the sword with both hands, resting on her chest. Poof! The sword's sharp blade cut on the white hard shell of Cooler's leg, rubbing out a dazzling spark. Cooler sneered, instantly closing the leg, while the body shocks, the infinite huge force will be from the waist, again conducted to the leg. Bang! The waist kick broke the golden longsword, instantly turned into a bit of starlight back to the body. Ayaka withstood the tremendous force, and a mouthful of blood spurted out of the mouth. Her whole body quickly flew out. Ayaka, leave quickly, do not fight with Cooler. You are no match for him. North Kai took a look at the situation was not good and anxiously shouted. However, Ayaka could not react at this moment. Cooler's attack came again, and countless heavy blows hit her body. Ayaka only felt as if all the bones in her body were going to break, intense pain filled the nerves. It was a completely one-sided battle. Go to hell. Cooler laughed crazily and clenched his hands into fists, preparing to send out a huge wave of energy. However, the moment Cooler prepared the energy wave, Ayaka made an instant transmission, and her whole body disappeared into the starry sky. Damn! How did she disappear? What a troublesome ability. Cooler calmed down. His face was gloomy and horrible, infinite anger surged in his chest, that B*TCH has too much potential. If I don't strangle her sooner or later, it will threaten my king's rule. At the North Kai's planet, North Kai looked nervously at the place where Ayaka disappeared. The next moment, the North Kai's planet space a twist, and seriously injured Ayaka appeared in front of North Kai. As soon as North Kai saw her, he hurriedly helped her up. Ayaka's face was pale, the golden energy in her cells surged violently, quickly repairing the injured parts. When her face improved, she reached out and took out a senzu bean and swallowed it. The sound of bones ringing, and Ayaka immediately restored to form. Cooler is too strong. I don't even have a chance to eat senzu beans. The final form of Frieza clan is not something I can deal with. Ayaka had thought of holding the senzu beans in her mouth and eating one in times of crisis, but this idea is not really feasible. Not to mention that it took some time for the senzu beans to take effect, and the senzu beans themselves serve to heal the body's injuries, but not to restore the injured person's power level immediately. After eating the senzu beans, there must still be sufficient time to reach peak condition. In the meantime, Cooler had the opportunity to injure her again. So, Ayaka could only choose to avoid Cooler for now. There was a starfield in the middle of the north area, separated from the Thousand Snow starfield. The final form of Cooler looked around for Ayaka's figure but was unable to locate her. Damn it! Cooler sprinted through the boundless space and smashed his fist into an oncoming meteorite. The meteorite immediately broke apart. There was no doubt that Cooler had let Ayaka escape. It was highly ironic that the great King Cooler let a weak mole escape from his fingers after transforming into his final form. The Cooler armored squadron's loss was equivalent to cutting off Cooler's men. The original expansion plan had to be revised. However, the priority was to stabilize the existing sphere of influence and prevent others from taking advantage of the situation to interfere. Cooler calmed down. The anger burning in his chest could not be quelled, and his evil eyes were gazing at the space. He spat powerfully and slowly flew deeper into the universe. As for the original green planet, it had lost its position during the pursuit of Ayaka. The message in the communication system of Cooler's headquarters was also erased from the system under the deliberate shielding of the North Kai. The role of North Kai was roughly to do some small actions. In the eastern part of the North area, a giant planet transformed by technology. A huge figure with black horns on his head draped in a large cloak sitting on a throne in the luxurious palace. Its feet were crossed, one hand on the chin, and it was leisurely sipping red wine. He was the commander of the entire eastern region, Frieza and Cooler's father, the strongest king of the Frieza clan, King Cold. Thump, the alien with scaly armor on his head, quickly ran in and prostrated himself to report, King Cold, there is the latest news coming from the central area. Oh, what's the news? Did my clever son Cooler finish ruling the central area, or did Frieza run off to compete with his brother for territory? King Cold spoke very casually. No, your majesty. King Cooler did not complete his rule and King Frieza did not get involved. The latest news says that King Cooler's armored squadron have encountered a strong enemy in the central area and have been completely wiped out, and that King Cooler has rushed over. The scale-armored alien reported nervously. King Cold shook his wine glass unexpectedly, took a sip of wine, and said with interest, the armored squadron was actually destroyed. Cooler must be very annoyed. Hee, interesting, then the people who annihilated the armored squadron will die a horrible death, I guess. Your Majesty, the news coming back from the front line seems to say that King Cooler did not manage to kill the opponent and let it escape. According to the aliens of the search team, the murderer escaped while King Cooler transformed into his final form. As he spoke, the scaled alien felt incredible. With a ping, the wine glass in his hand was crushed. The bright red wine dripped onto the ground with a clatter. King Cold's face changed slightly but quickly recovered. With a wicked smile on the corner of his mouth, he said, interesting, really interesting.
To think that someone could escape from Cooler's finial form, haha, this person's strength is no worse than my Frieza clan. The scaly armored alien stood carefully, not daring to make any movement. His heart was pounding, and at this moment, King Cold was certainly extremely unhappy. Indeed, King Cold was extremely unhappy. His Frisia clan originally ruled the north area, but now a master who could rival them appeared for no reason, and his rule was threatened. Party, inform it down. Let the subordinates search with all their might to find that person, and inform Cuckley if there is any news. King Cold gave the order, remember, use the highest power. Send a message from Cooler and Frisia that they should prioritize finding the murderer. Search all armed planets. Any factor that threatened the Frisia clan's rule needed to be eradicated immediately. Yes. The scaled alien named Party answered loudly and turned around to walk out of the palace. Wait. King Cold's thick and deep voice rang out. The alien immediately stopped walking and looked at King Cold. Have the Cold Force ready to march into the central area at any time. Now that Cooler's force has been destroyed, Cooler should temporarily give up the central area's conquest and stabilize his existing power and select a new mech force. However, it was the right time for him to send his Cold Force to take the central area in one fell swoop. The central area had been out of the Frisia clan rule for too long, and King Cold needed it to fall under the power of the Frisia clan immediately. After the alien left, King Cold's face was gloomy. His mouth muttered and said, in the end, where is the strongest person who can escape in the strongest state of Cooler? I'm afraid that strength is far beyond Frisia. He will be the biggest enemy of the Frisia clan. King Cold did not know that Ayaka used the heavenly fist to enhance the strength and did not know that Ayaka's escape had a lot to do with instant transmission. In King Cold's opinion, it was impossible to escape from the Cooler final form, the strength must be not inadequate. Such a big problem would be their clan's great enemy. It must be eradicated. As a king, King Cold had more power than Cooler and Frisia, which was why he made the central region a conquest target only after the defeat of Cooler. Both Cooler and Frisia were his sons, and sons were subject to the arrangements of his heirs. There was no difference between handing over the rule to Cooler and others and ruling personally. Not to mention that in addition to blood ties, King Cooler's strength also made him confident that he could master his two sons. In the far south of the north area, Frisia's base camp. Frisia also got the news of Cooler's defeat. He was ridiculed that he was also profoundly shocked at the opponent's strength. That strength had definitely been above himself. The thought of someone's strength beyond him made him gnash his teeth with hatred. This was a situation that had not existed for many years. In the universe, there was a more powerful existence than Cooler. After all, he had existed for a longer time than him. Now there was a nameless person who exceeded him. Frisia felt the pressure if he met that person because he was afraid to lose. Frisia clan was a rare race in the universe and had an extremely long lifespan, living hundreds of years from his ultimate state. He was still very young, which could only be counted as a peremptory of the Frisia clan. Although he was evil and ruthless, he was not nearly as brutal as King Cold and Cooler. That nameless person who appeared, could it be the legendary Super Saiyan? When Frisia thought of this, he was trembling. It was reasonable to say that he destroyed the entire Vegeta planet, and the few surviving Saiyans were also under his control. Could it be that there are still fallen fish? He snapped. Immediately notify the Jinyu force to depart for the headquarters. Frisia wanted to conquer that planet but was worried about running into that person, so he dispatched the Jinyu force to go to the head of the line. When this order was given, Frisia could not sit still any longer and called an alien and said, "Go immediately to the archives where the Saiyans are kept and sort through the birth data of all Saiyans in the last few hundred years. Anyone who is not 100% confirmed dead, all included in the list of suspicion. No matter how many people there are, this king shall grant you. Keep it a secret and don't let the Saiyans know."
In addition, I ask for the results within 3 days. At North Kai planet, Ayaka had fully recovered. She took a long breath, and her whole body was in pain. There were surging and powerful energies coming from her body. They were like new life force infusion, giving her a feeling of being transformed. She knew that after the battle with Cooler, her strength had made whole progress. It was just a sigh of relief that she hadn't been able to break through to the Super Saiyan stage after all. It's true that it's too difficult to transform into a Super Saiyan, I'm still far from it. Although there were some regrets, Ayaka was not discouraged. Strength's growth was a fact, just not to the point of breaking through to the Super Saiyan. She sat in the same place, like an old monk in meditation. North Kai saw her and thought she was frightened by Cooler's terrifying strength. It was also true that she had never known that Cooler was so powerful that he could be so terrifying. When she suddenly faced such an enemy, even North Kai was frightened. When Cooler had been like this, how strong were King Cold and Frisia? North Kai felt that the future of the galaxy under his jurisdiction was in danger. His eyes stared at Ayaka through the sunglasses. North Kai put all his hopes on the young girl in front of him. Alas, the Frisia clan is really a terrifying existence. Ayaka is now at a level where I can no longer guide her, so she can only rely on her own comprehension. Thinking of this, North Kai was a little ashamed. He did not seem to know that Ayaka had the Saiyan blood, otherwise, the worry might be much less. However, it wasn't completely his fault because the whole plant Vegeta was also destroyed in the Frisia clan's hands. Ayaka shook her head and said, I want to improve my strength, I still have to go around the planets. Right, why don't you go to Grand Kai's planet and see the Grand Kai? Grand Kai is highly respected and knowledgeable, and is in charge of our 4 Kais. So, I think he can guide you. North Kai proposed. Ayaka thought about it. Grand Kai was really knowledgeable and had countless masters under him. He would even hold a heavenly martial arts tournament in the future to select the strongest person in the galaxy. Among them, there were many strong people close to the second stage of Super Saiyan. She wasn't in the state of the strongest person in the future yet, but if she got the guidance of the Grand Kai, she would improve by leaps and bounds. However, thinking of Grand Kai's old boy-like character, Ayaka shook her head. Forget it, she needed to break through the Super Saiyan first, and then she would seek advice from the Grand Kai. No, Grand Kai is highly respected, it is better to wait for the opportunity to visit. I plan to travel to other planets. North Kai nodded his head. Then, under his attention, Ayaka launched an instant transmission and disappeared from North Kai's planet. East Galaxy, a strange small starfield. This was the starfield under the command of East Kai. In the original manga and anime, the planet beyond the East area was not much depicted, so Ayaka had very little knowledge of the East area. Ayaka intended to use the next period to travel well, deepen her power, and preferably succeed in breaking through the Super Saiyan barrier. In a bright and colorful starfield, a binary star system, 2 huge blazing planets swirled around each other to scatter a dazzlingly bright light. In the galaxy, there were more than a dozen planets, countless times more massive than Jupiter. Either regularly rotate around a single planet, or move in a regular or irregular curve around the galaxy. There was no shortage of tiny moons around these planets, each larger than the Earth, with complex and orderly orbits. Ayaka flew across the sky and then flew low, gradually finding traces of civilization after crossing the forest and lake. Phew! She landed in a small town, which was relatively prosperous, bustling with people passing by. The people of this planet were the same as Earthlings except for their hair color and skin. The townspeople did not seem to be surprised by the girl who suddenly fell from the sky, but they were amazed by her beauty. However, they were soon overwhelmed by trifles and went on with their own business. It seems that the people of this planet have become accustomed to flying. Ayaka secretly thought and then surveyed up. She found that the people around had an average of 350 power levels, similar to the Cruxians. The whole planet should be at a low level. Changing with the flow of this planet's clothing, Ayaka was finally not so different. Wandering freely through the various streets, through several contacts with the natives, Ayaka soon learned that this planet was called Metamor, a planet belonging to the East Area's fringe. Metamor was large, much larger than Jupiter, with 7 moons and 16 times the Earth's gravity. Metamor. What a familiar name. Ayaka suddenly felt as if she had heard this name somewhere. The name of the planet that could make her feel familiar must have been in contact with it before. After thinking hard, Ayaka couldn't recall where this name appeared in the original story. Nah, have you heard? Lord Baker will teach martial art at the dojo. A large man in sackcloth said in a whisper to a person beside him in the restaurant. There was a strong sense of admiration in his words, as if the man named Baker was famous in the neighborhood. The man at the same table then nodded excitedly. If I can get the guidance of Lord Baker, I can definitely have great achievements. I really look forward to it. That's right. It's a pity that Lord Baker rarely teaches his skills, but this time it's a rare opportunity. The more they talked, the more excited they were. They couldn't wait to go to the dojo to receive instruction. Ayaka sat at a table in one corner, eating a snack while listening to their conversation. She picked up the pastry and stuffed it into her mouth. Lord Baker should be a relatively famous strong person in this area. The power level of the people of this ice-blue planet is generally not low. Almost all of them are called martial artists. In this environment, the one called Lord Baker still has such a reputation, so maybe he has something quite unique. Soon after finishing the food on the table, Ayaka checked out and left, heading in the dojo direction. Planet Metamor used a universal currency called energy stones. Depending on the strength of energy stones had various specifications. According to different energy scales, the energy stone currency had different denominations. It was manufactured jointly by several powers of the universe. Baker was a rare martial artist in this area and was a woman. Baker's dojo didn't often open, only once a month. Whenever the dojo was open, martial artists from various towns and cities came to visit, hoping to receive instruction. When Ayaka arrived at the dojo, the entire dojo was already overcrowded. The huge brown and red wall enclosed the dojo, and only the front entrance was passable. The disciples who maintained law and order were guarding the gate, registering the martial artists who came. Since it was an open event, there was no strict identity screening procedure. Simply write down the name in the record book. Ayaka walked through the door and entered the inside of the dojo. Baker's dojo was very large. There were 4 open-air arenas of 50 square meters. Inside was divided into 3 martial arts dojo levels. Baker's practice and a small courtyard were the last. Look at this dojo arrangement. Baker is also true talent. Her strength may not be as strong as the alien, but at least an outstanding martial artist at this level. Ayaka looked around and could not help but think of the dojo. Also in the countryside town, Baker's dojo is a bit more large-scale. Well, after all, planet Metamor is much stronger than Earth. Soon, Baker came out. She was a beautiful lady with green hair and blue eyes, who didn't look very old, only in her 20s. Baker sent her disciples to compete against the visiting martial artists and give instructions one by one. Since Baker only gave instructions once a month, the group listened reverently and thoughtfully. Baker's martial arts training was extremely high, and often a single instruction makes them feel stunned. Ayaka walked around and watched several bouts in a row, secretly nodding. Baker has 1600 power level, with such martial arts insights. She is so young, yet already very rare. In the evening, the dojo, which had been open all day, began to close, and Baker had returned to her small courtyard to rest. There was a knock on the door, and Baker stood up and walked to the door. She opened it to see a tall, beautiful girl standing in front of her. Are you here to study? Now the lecture time is over, you can come back next month. Baker said with a frown. The young girl in front of her smiled blandly. She then had a flash of her body, and her whole body became a blur and then disappeared in front of her. Baker's gaze was cold, instinctively alert, and her nerves were fiercely tense. "Come and sit down, how can I be good when the host is standing at the door?" Somehow Ayaka appeared in the house at the small table, lifting the teapot to pour a cup of tea. So strong. Baker's pupils shrink. Her heart flooded with waves, silently crossed herself. She didn't notice, this strength was much stronger than her. As for Ayaka's reflexive behavior, Baker could not see the slightest trace of her embarrassment. Baker walked to the small table and sat down in amazement. "Who are you and why did you come to my dojo?" With her strength, this young girl in front of her had no reason to come to her isolated place. "Don't be so nervous, I'm just a traveler in the interstellar world. I landed on Metamor and happened to hear rumors about you, so I came to take a look." Ayaka took a sip and continued, "Your strength is very good. Although it is still so far behind the aliens of the outside world, your training in that martial art is good." After saying that, Ayaka's body released a little ki. Although it was only a little ki, it made Baker felt like she was in the middle of a wave, and her body was so stiff that she couldn't control herself. As if the sky was dark, Baker felt that the huge energy oppressed the whole body subconsciously wanted to resist. Cold sweat emerged at once. What a terrifying aura. Even grandfather is completely incomparable. Baker stared at Ayaka in horror. If not for the other side's prior release of goodwill, she would have fainted from fear. In Baker's heart, her grandfather, who had adopted her, had been the most amazing martial artist she had ever seen. She had taken over the martial arts academy after his death and had never met an opponent. However, the young girl in front of her was so strong that just a little ki made her feel suffocated. "Do you have any martial arts worth learning on this planet? I can exchange them with you," Ayaka said bluntly. "Don't look at planet Metamor's not so high general strength." Power was a relative subject to Ayaka's vision. Baker seriously looked at Ayaka and saw the young girl in front of her didn't look like she was lying, and thought to herself, "Is it true that she's just here to exchange martial arts?" After considering again, Baker decided to believe Ayaka's words. When it came to the exchange, she did not seem to have any too valuable moves. What is that she knows that the opposite girl doesn't know? Ayaka saw Baker was a bit distressed. She smiled and poured another cup of tea. "I can't think of anything to give, but my grandfather knew a technique when he was alive. Maybe there is some value." Baker sighed. "What technique? Tell me, if there is value you can exchange with me." Grandfather had a move called fusion dance. The move is not difficult, but there are too many restrictions on the use, some flashy. Baker explained softly as she glanced at Ayaka. Ayaka listened. The tea in her mouth spurted out, and her eyes opened. It was too unexpected. Planet Metamor. Is this planet Metamor that teaches the fusion dance? Ayaka was startled. Although it was easy to learn, there were many restrictions. It required both sides to have the same amount of ki and to share the same mind. There was a time limit to use it, so it was not too much to say that it was flashy. However, even though there were many restrictions, it was still a remarkable technique. The same power, the same mind, the requirements are really quite a lot, but no matter what, I need to learn it. Ayaka's mind calculating, Launch and Lancy were very suitable for the use of the fusion dance. As for herself, she did not think there was anyone who could use the fusion dance with her. "Is this okay?" Baker asked with difficulty. "It's okay. Let me think of what technique I can use to exchange with you," Ayaka said with a smile. "Let me think about it. The heavenly fist, it should be perfect for you," Ayaka said thoughtfully. Considering Baker's strength, Ayaka finally came up with Heavenly Fist in exchange. Although the Heavenly Fist was not like Kaioken, it was born from Kaioken. After Ayaka's careful research, it was full of power, and it was also a first-class technique. What a powerful move. Baker received the black booklet that recorded the heavenly fist and was soon attracted by the booklet's moves. She was very quick to take out the secret technique of the fusion dance. The heavenly fist, releasing the body's ki in the form of thunder and lightning. By waving the fist out, the thunder startled the sky. In Baker's view, this fist technique was incomparably profound and magical. An aura of a martial arts master came out in the booklet, which was 10,000 times more important than the flashy fusion dance. Then the deal is done, see you around. Ayaka said with a smile, and after greeting Baker, she teleported away. Baker watched in shock as the other side suddenly disappeared. Trading a fusion dance for a super move, she seemed to have taken a big advantage. However, soon she turned her mind to the black pamphlet and was instantly captivated. After getting the fusion dance, Ayaka was in a happy mood. This trip was also considered to be rewarding. Leaving the Baker dojo, she visited several famous dojos one after another, during which she met the strongest master of planet Metamor. He was a strong man with a power level of 30,000, but such a strong man was already like a child in Ayaka's eyes, so she left planet Metamor in an instant, thinking that she would not gain much by staying any longer. In the east area's deep cosmic space, a crystal bright light streaked by, carrying a dazzling bright light behind it. When Ayaka left planet Metamor, she jumped several times in succession and then flew at high speed through the cosmic space. What's that? Not far away shone a colorful glow, which was fascinating. Up ahead was an earthy planetary system with 3 small moons revolving around an interstellar planet, satellite. The one emitting the colored light was one of those 3 moons. Ayaka immediately turned the direction and sped towards the glowing satellite. Upon landing on the satellite's uneven surface, there was no atmosphere. Surrounded by calcareous scattered fragile rock, huge diameter craters covered the surface of the satellite. The appearance looked just like the moon, except that the volume was countless times larger than the moon. Along with the colorful blinding light, Ayaka came to a substantial ring-shaped impact crater near. The impact crater was huge, 10,000 meters in diameter and 1,000 meters deep. The light was emitted from the center of the crater. The closer she got to the crater, the brighter the light became. The blinding light shone through, making Ayaka had to close her eyes tightly. Open the unsighted. The blue color quickly covered her eyes to block the irradiation's blinding light. Ayaka finally saw what was in the center of the ring-shaped pit. Surprisingly, it was a crystal-clear and flawless building. Is that a temple? The temple building was ancient and elegant, with a strange and very different modeling style, looking small and exquisite, unlike the architectural style of this area of the interstellar. The whole temple shone with a colorful haze. What a beautiful temple! How could such a temple appear in the crater of a satellite? Well, did it fly in from beyond the sky? Ayaka's interest increased, and she carefully walked into the crater and came near the crystal temple. Hey, North Kai, do you know what this temple is? Ayaka contacted the North Kai. Since this place was located in the east area and was under the East Kai jurisdiction, it was very far from the North area. It took a long time before North Kai was contacted. North Kai was also very cautious about such communication and greeted East Kai beforehand. As soon as he heard that a kami under the care of the North Kai had come to the East area to travel, East Kai said enthusiastically that the North Kai did not have to avoid it and that he could just communicate with her directly. I've never seen this kind of temple before, it doesn't look like an ordinary thing. Well, let me check it out. North Kai stared at the crystal temple through the image with strange eyes. The tentacles on his head trembled and sent out several waves of electricity, contacting the Grand Kai to check. Soon, North Kai finished his inquiry. Ayaka, this temple is not something from the galaxy, and there is no record of this object in Grand Kai's planet. Moreover, I felt a strong divine power on the temple, which is beyond the jurisdiction of the Kai, perhaps it is something left behind by a great person. Really? That's something to take a good look at, Ayaka said in amazement. The divine relics beyond the jurisdiction of the Kais were not easy to come across, and that great person was at least at the level of Supreme Kai. Never. That temple is very mysterious, don't risk it. North Kai persuaded. It's okay, my physique can be different from ordinary people, there's nothing to be afraid of. Ayaka was confident. Even the dragon god, who represents the will of the universe, couldn't change her physique, and she believed that this world could not change her. Gently walked to the temple's side, she put her hand against the pillar of the crystal temple. A calm and icy feeling immediately hit her body, making her unable to resist a soft chant, and all the cells in her body seemed to be activated and full of vitality. Ayaka walked into the temple. Inside was a large hall held up by 12 huge pillars of coiled crystal dragons. The hall was large, and the walls were carved with beautiful murals. In front of the hall were 2 winding staircases on the left and right. A transparent crystal door was distributed along the staircase, but the scene behind the door could not be seen. Pushing open the largest door on the second floor, Ayaka walked in. The surrounding environment suddenly changed dramatically. Suddenly, it was as if it was in the ice and snow. A rising ice pillar stood there in the ice and snow-covered world, shining with a cold, bright light. Ayaka curiously approached the ice pillar, stretching out her hand to touch the column of ice and snow. A strange cold struck, her whole body seemed frozen up, followed by a cold coolness to the heart. Her soul shivered, and a tremor came, and the 2 broken swords shining snow-white cold light was separated. It was the sword that Cooler cut off. The Purunga forged this divine sword with Ayaka's soul. It was hidden in the body when not in use, but since Cooler's brute force cut it off, it lost its spirituality. It had always been cowering in the body, and no matter how Ayaka called it, it could not appear. However, now it was unexpectedly revealed automatically. 2 broken sword sections floating in the air constantly rotate when the dazzling light on the icicle burst out. The blinding light will illuminate the entire space. A crystal ball of light slowly left the icicle, gradually into the 2 broken swords. Ding! The broken sword emitted a dragon-like whistle. The divine sword broken into 2 pieces was haughtily connected, and the sword emitted an icy coldness. The original brown scabbard, golden-hilt longsword, all of a sudden became glittering. The sword body was shimmering snow-white cold light, and its whole body into a transparent crystal color, as if a bright pearl shining with bright pleated light. Crystal sword reintegrated into her body, and Ayaka couldn't help but fight a thrill. Her body was filled with a refreshing atmosphere. But it was so cold. The icy divine sword. A consciousness came through, letting Ayaka know the Crystal Divine Sword's name and the origin of the Crystal Divine Temple. The Crystal Divine Temple was named the Ice King Palace and came from far beyond the governance. The so-called governance outside the universe was the space outside Kais. The Kais governed the star field where Ayaka was located, and each Kai had its own planet. The Ice King Palace came from outside the governance, each king has its own palace, and the Ice King Palace was the palace of one of the king. For unknown reasons, the Ice King Palace floated to a moon in the middle of the East area under East Kai's jurisdiction and fell by gravity and was captured by Ayaka. Governance outside the Kai's territory, the king. It seems that this world is not so simple. The original story had only been describing Kais, so Ayaka simply thought that the Dragon Ball world's highest level was the Supreme Kai. Now, it seemed that the Kais was only the tip of the iceberg of the entire world. Outside of the world, there was the mysterious king's world and even more regions, so their eyes couldn't be limited to one place. If someone get the Ice King Divine Sword, he or she will obtain the Ice King Palace, and even phase the new Ice King return to the throne. Ayaka smiled and thought, the Ice King Palace, as the King Palace, was comparable in function to the Kai's planet. It was also extremely helpful in training, not to mention that there was such a powerful weapon as the Ice King Divine Sword, so congratulations. As for selecting a new Ice King, Ayaka was not considering it for the time being. Her strength was not enough to think so far ahead. Moreover, the king was outside the pipeline, and the road was a major obstacle. At least, until my strength is strong enough, and capable of breaking into the realm, I will pick the Ice King. Ayaka left the Ice King Palace. Today's events couldn't be told to anyone, and the North Kai wouldn't have thought about this crystal temple's true origin. Just as she was about to leave the satellite, she got a call from North Kai. "Wait, Ayaka, don't go yet. Someone is coming to see you. Someone is looking for me." Ayaka stopped preparing to leave and asked in surprise, "Who is looking for me?" "First, I will not tell you. Later when you meet, you will know. It is an acquaintance." North Kai smiled. Shaking her head, Ayaka sometimes felt helpless for North Kai's bad taste. He said it was an acquaintance, so it should be someone she knew. Without giving it much thought, she casually chipped a rock with her hand and sat down to wait for the other side to arrive. She sat on the end of the satellite as the satellite followed the planets wandering in the universe. Distantly watching the stars twinkle with a little starlight was also something else. Could it be the girls? Ayaka suddenly thought. She had left planet Yardrat for almost half a year, and the girls should have almost learned instant transmission. Ayaka was almost certain. To find her in the vast universe of emptiness, she was sure, it was the girls who had learned the instant transmission. "North Kai, it is the girls, right?" Leisurely, Ayaka communicated with North Kai again. North Kai laughed, "Hey, you know so quickly. It is Launch and Lancy. As soon as they learned the instant transmission, they contacted me and said they were coming to find you." Sure enough, it was them. Ayaka smiled lightly, then quietly waited. Several minutes passed, but the girls hadn't arrived yet. Why haven't they arrived yet? Although it is far from the north area, they should be here in a few moments. "Hey, North Kai, the girls have not arrived yet, help me see where they have arrived." Ayaka contacted North Kai once again. North Kai nodded. His two tentacles inquired and said, "They've already left the north area, they'll be there soon." Shortly after cutting the connection with North Kai, two beautiful figures appeared on the satellite and were constantly looking around. "Hey, over here!" Ayaka shouted with a wave of her hand, and only after shouting did she realize that this was the vacuum of cosmic space, so how could the girls hear her? She teleported to the two, grabbed their hands, and then launched an instant transmission. The three disappeared together in the void. Launch and Lancy felt that someone grabbed them. After that, the picture turned violently and left the empty but wonderful universe, and what came into view was a vast and rippling prairie. "How about that, isn't it beautiful?" Ayaka's voice full of joy into their ears. They turned their heads to look, and Launch shouted happily, "Ayaka, it is you. I thought it was someone else." Ayaka smiled and let go of their hands and then surveyed them. More than half a year without seeing each other, Launch and Lancy changed a lot. Although the strength hadn't grown too much, their temperament had changed more obviously. Grandma Vishi's teachings were different. What took so long to get there? Although the east area and the north area are far apart, with the ability to teleport it won't take much time. By the way, how can you guys move in space now? She remembered that the two of them had just appeared on the satellite, which meant they had left the dependence on oxygen and could move freely in the vacuum. The two could not move around in the universe, so she was waiting for them on the satellite. The words of North Kai misled her. Lancy swayed her long emerald green hair and grabbed the words, "This is the ability taught to us by Grandma Vishi. Although it's not as good as your energy bound, but it allows us to move in space for a short period of time." The transient space movement, together with the instant transmission, could already do many things. After passing Grandma Vishi's test, we asked North Kai about your whereabouts. It would have been quick, but we met a very, very big giant tree halfway and stayed for a while. Giant trees? What kind of giant trees attract you guys to put down your feet? Ayaka asked, puzzled. Well, it's a big tree, bigger than a mountain. It's big tree that can be seen in space. Lancy gestured and said. The more she said, the more even she felt she couldn't say it clearly. Launch smiled and said, it's a reddish-brown tree, tens of thousands of meters high, with strong and powerful roots. It's deeply rooted in the soil, and the whole planet is full of coiled and winding roots. I've never seen such a huge tree. Tens of thousands of meters tall huge trees with rhizomes all over the world. Ayaka's eyes glowed and asked excitedly, is that planet so barren that the whole planet doesn't even have a blade of grass except for that giant tree? Ah yes, how do you know? Lancy remembered the condition of that planet. It was a barren desert except for the giant tree. Great opportunity. If I'm not wrong, that giant tree is called Tree of Might. The fruit produced is called Tree of Might fruit. After eating it, it can make the power level increase dramatically. Seeing the two confused expressions, Ayaka explained, Tree of Might originally grew in the divine realm, and the fruit can only be eaten by kami. Because Tree of Might is too dominant, if rooted in the planet, will absorb all the nutrients of the soil and produce fruit, and the planet's land will become a barren desert, until a grass does not grow. Instantly, if Tree of Might leaves, nothing can grow on that planet for hundreds of years. Tree of Might is a great disaster for a planet, but it is a great opportunity for those who encounter it. Ayaka remembered the anime. There was an inferior warrior named Tolls, who looked exactly like the grown-up son Goku. His luck was surprisingly good. After the destruction of planet Vegeta, he escaped, and later in the interstellar journey, the strength continued to get stronger. Before he ate the fruit, his power level reached 27,000. After eating the fruit, his power level rose to 300,000, but unfortunately, Tolls was too ambitious to aim at the earth and was finally wiped out by Son Goku together with Tree of Might. Is that tree so powerful? Lancy was amazed. Ayaka nodded and said with certainty, Tree of Might's fruit can enhance power level and does not have any side effects. Do you remember which planet has the Tree of Might's fruit? Launch looked at Lancy and Ayaka, who were both excited and said, that planet is at the junction of the east area and the north area. It can be reached in a few transients. Then what are you waiting for, hurry up. Lancy urged. She teleported away first. Ayaka and Launch smiled and followed closely. At the junction of the north area and the east area, a small piece of space was distorted in the vast and endless starry sky. The three of them emerged. In front of them was the planet occupied by Tree of Might. Ayaka slowly went towards Tree of Might. The closer she got, the more she felt the immensity of the Tree of Might. With its tens of thousands of meters high trunk like a pillar, towering high into the clouds, the dense cluster of leaves growing in the sky, blocking all the sunlight like clouds. The ground was barren and lacking water, almost becoming a desert. Landing on the trunk of Tree of Might, Ayaka scanned the surrounding area and found that apart from Tree of Might, there wasn't even the slightest sign of life around. So, she said with regret, it seems that this planet is really too sick to be saved. Given the state of this planet, Tree of Might should have already borne fruit. Launch, Lancy, let's split up and search for it, make sure to find all the fruits. Instead of sitting back and watching the fruits fall into the mouths of others, Ayaka would certainly prefer to be the picker herself. With that, the three of them turned into several swift winds and deftly passed back and forth among the leafy tree trunks. There's a fruit there. Ayaka's sharp eyes saw a fruit blocked by dense leaves, and a strong wind shot out from the palm of his hand. The fruit flew down and was taken into Ayaka's arms with a smile. A single fruit is limited in its usefulness. If you want a big increase in power level you need a large number of fruits. I wonder how many fruits this Tree of Might can produce. Upon thinking in her mind, her hands and feet weren't slow at all. The fruits were constantly found one by one, and soon there was nearly 100 Tree of Might fruits in her hands. When the Tree of Might fruit all swept away, Ayaka had picked about 200 fruits. 3 people gathered together, counted a total of more than 500 tree of might fruit. The next was the distribution. The girls had a total of 300, and Ayaka exclusive 240. A tree of might fruit growth of power level was limited. According to the strength of each person, the effect was different. In general, the tree of might fruit was like potential development, each fruit could open a part of the potential. Launch, these 300 tree of might fruit eat all by yourself. As long as your power level increased, according to you and Lancey's physique, Lancey's power level will also quickly follow, so that you can better play the effect. Ayaka reminded. Ayaka had some idea of such an allocation. Launch and Lancey's qualifications were, after all, limited. Although through the transformation of the Purunga, their bloodline was no match for the Saiyans. The 300 tree of might fruit for Launch to eat could make the too powerful early. She only intends to eat 150 of the 240 fruits in her hands. The other 90 Ayaka had other plans. After instructing Lancey to stand guard, Ayaka and Launch began to eat up. Burp. With the first bite, the green and sour taste swirled in the mouth. As they swallowed the fruit, a hot burning sensation came out of their chests as if the whole body was on fire. Steam rose, a trace of invisible ki in the body as a trickle, hot and cool sensations constantly hit the nerves. Feeling that the body would soften, the heat slowly receded, and cool relief spread throughout the body. The brain was unusually high in spirit. Countless air currents echoed throughout the body meridians. Ayaka roared, her sensitive nerves felt the movement of blood flowing from her body. It had been a long time since she had such a clear feeling. Ayaka looked at herself and found that her power level had actually increased by a large margin. It should be known that after that big battle with Cooler, Ayaka raked in the gains. Her power level rose from 3 million to nearly 7 million. With one fruit going down, it actually rose to 7.15 million at once, a rise of more than 200,000. One fruit has such an effect. If I eat all 150 of them, my power level will not go up. Well, the tree of might is to develop the potential of the individual. Tulls ate so many, and his final power level is only 300,000, I just ate one to raise the 200,000 power level. Ayaka let go and wolfed down the tree of might fruit one by one into her mouth. The hot and cool sensations were constantly alternating in her chest. Tree of might fruit didn't seem to take up space. As soon as it went down, it turned into ki currents and spread throughout the body, and soon, all the 150 fruits in her hand were eaten. Boo! Ayaka's whole body ignited yellowish ki. The strong windstorm was constantly sweeping the ground. Tree of might was swaying like rain in the intense storm, continually swinging from side to side. 10.2 million. Ayaka was excitedly laughing. Tree of might fruit had the most obvious effect when she ate the first one. Her power level rose to more than 200,000. After the rising value gradually reduced, even the last few fruit effect had minimal. Although 150 fruits down, it's still hard to raise her power level to 10.2 million, up more than 3 million. The last few fruits had been a bit of a waste, but Ayaka was not afraid because she had plenty of fruits. There were still more than 90 in hand for another plan. Tree of might fruit increase had an optimal take effect interval. Generally speaking, the power level higher than 100,000, but less than 5 million, was the most effective one to eat. Low power level people such as the power level of only a few hundred people, even if they ate up a 200%, it was a waste. While high power level people, although the value of growth was considerable, the increase rate was slightly higher for high power level people. In terms of the people themselves, the rate of increase was somewhat shabby. Those who exceed the effective taking interval, such as Ayaka with more than 7 million power levels, could increase to 200,000. Usually, when more than 5 million power level people eat the tree of might fruit, the effect was not much. If people with a power level of tens of millions of people ate, it did not affect and was like eating an ordinary apple. It could only satiate the mouth, and the taste of the tree of might fruit wasn't really good. Since the sudden advance in her strength, Ayaka could safely and boldly say that the galaxy was allowed to straddle her with a bit of care. Not far away, Lancy looked at the young girl in shock. Her mouth opened wide, and her eyes flashed with surprise. Ayaka calmed down and flew to Lancy's side. Then both eyes gazed at the rising ki of Lancy. Launch had 300,000 power level. What will be her strength after eating 300 tree of might fruits? Ayaka and Lancy were both curious as they stood by Launch's side and watched her rising. Launch's power level had reached 300,000, within the best range of the tree of might fruit. Her power had risen about 100,000 after the first fruit was eaten, which was much better than the 300,000 of that tolls. The next fruit increased gradually but the drop was minimal and was very stable. Launch's ki finally stopped rising when all 300 fruits were wiped out. From the ki that emerged from Launch's body, her strength reached 3 million. Ayaka looked at her gratefully and thought pleasantly, now Launch's strength reached 3 million. Soon after, Lancy will also reach this value, nearly 8 years ahead of the beginning of Dragon Ball Z. I don't have to worry about being surpassed by others in a short time. Launch, who first woke up, did not notice that her strength had gone up several times. Ayaka was busy reminding her, you still aren't quick enough to converge your ki. Ah! What's going on? Launch realized that her body burst with rich and frightening ki. She was shocked and hurried to converge. Ayaka and Lancy both laughed. After this, they were ready to leave. Ayaka took out the capsule and put away the remaining 90 tree of might fruits. This kind of treasure must be carefully cared for. The tree of might on the barren planet would be destroyed, so the three of them instantly moved and disappeared into the universe. The North Kai's planet. When Ayaka and the girls returned here, their wonderful experience really scared North Kai. North Kai sighed, I didn't think you guys could actually encounter the legendary tree of might in the east area. This is incredible. But this is good. Instead of letting other people pick the tree of might fruit, it would be better for you guys to harvest it. Knowing that Launch already had a power level of 3 million, the North Kai was smiling with unspeakable pleasure. If Launch reached 3 million, then Lancy will also soon reach this level. You two have really good physique. Of course, Ayaka's power level that already exceeded 10 million became a great joy for North Kai to relish. Earth, after the end of the 21st World Martial Arts Tournament. The 22nd World Martial Arts Tournament was held as scheduled. All the contestants were as in the original. Because Son Goku's strength was strong, after climbing the Korin Tower 3 years ago, he surpassed today's Tien Shinhan. After 3 years of training, his power was far beyond normal, and he finally won the championship. Tien Shinhan and Kaiatsu also converted under the guidance of Master Roshi, rebelling against the Crane School. At the end of the tournament, Son Goku and others originally intended to celebrate a good time, but they met the Demon King Piccolo's subordinates, Tambourine. At that time, Tambourine was attacking Krillin and was stopped by Son Goku in time. The angry Goku and killed Tambourine. According to the magic sign left on the body of Master Roshi, he recognized Demon King Piccolo, who had caused trouble 300 years ago. Finally, Son Goku still embarked on the road to find the Demon King Piccolo for various reasons. He held a life-and-death battle with the Demon King Piccolo. Although Son Goku's strength far beyond the original, he ultimately lost to Demon King Piccolo by a single move. Ayaka returned to Earth when Demon King Piccolo gathered 7 Dragon Balls to summon Shinran. Why is the sky black? Lancy looked at the dark sky in surprise. Landing on the ground, Ayaka looked up at the sky, frowned, and said, someone had gathered all the Dragon Balls and summoned Shinran. Let's go to the lookout first. We can see anywhere on Earth from the lookout. Without giving it much thought, Ayaka, Launch, and Lancy rushed toward the lookout. Earth, the lookout. Kami and Mr. Popo stood at the edge of the lookout. Kami was leaning on his cane, looking down at the lower realm with a sad frown. He was very disturbed by the Demon King Piccolo's re-emergence and felt that this was his debt to the earth. Mr. Popo worriedly looked at Kami and said, "Kami, Demon King Piccolo summoned Shinran, and has regained his youth. His strength has become more powerful. Unfortunately, the previous boy would have been able to defeat Demon King Piccolo if he were stronger." Kami shook his head regretfully. "Due to Demon King Piccolo's special status, we can't directly take action. We can only hope that an Earth Master will defeat him." The good thing was that Demon King Piccolo did not kill the previous boy, so there was still hope for Earth. Mr. Popo nodded. The internal affairs of the Earth couldn't be interfered with by Kami. Such a rigid rule was intended to motivate Earthlings on the Earth to be elevated after the calamity. This was why Demon King Piccolo was allowed to develop before. Now, the power of Demon King Piccolo almost touches the threshold for Kami to step in. On the other hand, Demon King Piccolo was the split out of Kami. So, Kami couldn't directly kill Piccolo because Kami couldn't commit suicide. Piccolo, who had regained his youth, might not be something Kami could deal with. Mr. Popo himself was a servant sent from the upper realm to assist Kami, so naturally, he would not do anything that would endanger the life of Kami. However, if Demon King Piccolo led the world into disaster, perhaps Kami and Mr. Popo would have to take action. At this time, the atmosphere was distorted, and Ayaka and others appeared out of thin air. "Ayaka, you guys are back." Seeing Ayaka and the others appear, Kami had a smile on his face. With the Earth's incumbent Kami here, what problems remain that couldn't be solved? As long as the incumbent Kami took action, Demon King Piccolo was no longer a match at all. "Hi, we're back." Ayaka greeted with a smile. As soon as Launch and Lancy got on the lookout, they ran to the edge of the lookout to see Shinran. "You guys came at the right time. Demon King Piccolo is scouring the earth from the lower realm and has reached the threshold for Kami to strike. Now it's your turn to strike." Kami said seriously. "Well, I know, but Demon King Piccolo is just a small point. I think it's not time for me to strike." Ayaka nodded, looking relaxed, and said, "If you don't make a move, can you leave it to the girls?" The Kami naturally know that Ayaka wouldn't let Demon King Piccolo scourge the earth, so he aimed his gaze at the girls who were watching the lower realm. Ayaka shook her head and said, "Not them either. Demon King Piccolo will naturally have someone to deal with him. Besides a few of us, is there anyone on Earth who is a match for Demon King Piccolo?" Kami asked in surprise, and Mr. Popo also looked over in confusion. Ayaka lightly smiled, walked to the edge of the lookout, pointed to the Son Goku in the lower realm, and said, "That boy is called Son Goku. He is my brother, and I recognized him in the lower realm. He is very good. To him, Demon King Piccolo shouldn't be a problem." Kami and Mr. Popo nodded at the sound of it. Mr. Popo asked suspiciously, "This youngster is the child who fought and lost against Demon King Piccolo before. However, he has been seriously injured, and looking at his condition, he is not a match for Demon King Piccolo. Could it be that you want him to drink the sacred water?" "No. Although the sacred water can stimulate the potential, but the danger is too high." Kami thought for a moment and felt that it was too risky. Ayaka shook her head and took out a red fruit from the capsule. It was the Tree of Might fruit. "The sacred water is too dangerous, I naturally will not use it." Ayaka pointed to the red fruit in her hand and said, "This is called Tree of Might fruit. Just eating one can stimulate a lot of potential, and it's not dangerous at all." The sacred water was not a safe thing in Ayaka's view. It stimulated the potential, but it was too overbearing. In the original story, Son Goku suffered 9 deaths, with the Saiyan bloodline to carry through. Ayaka even suspected that it was because of the sacred water plus the late use of several heavy loads of Kaioken that Son Goku premature heart muscle strain, resulting in viral heart disease. Saiyans as a warrior race had a power core, the heart. So, how could they say that there was a problem? Any individual with an extremely high power level could not be harmed too much by ordinary foreign germs. Their body's immune system was beyond the ordinary strong. As soon as the germs enter the body, they were swallowed up by the body fluid's immune cells. Son Goku actually suffered from viral heart disease, most likely because of certain reasons and the weak link in the body. Although it was just a guess, since there was a better substitute, Ayaka was not going to let Son Goku drink the sacred water. Kami took the tree of might fruit and looked it up and down. How amazing! Of course. This fruit was born from absorbing the life essence of the entire planet. It contains rich life energy. The important thing is that it does not have any side effects. Ayaka took out 9 more fruits and handed them to the old sky god. Kami immediately understood the preciousness of the tree of might fruit and carefully put the fruits away. A total of 10 fruits. Kami and Mr. Popo first eat 1 each, the other 8 you decide for yourselves. This fruit will stimulate the potential according to different strength differential. If your strength is too low, the potential triggered is less, and if it is too high, the fruit will not play a good role, so it is best to eat between 100,000 and 5 million power level. Between 100,000 and 5 million to eat was the best. Kami and Mr. Popo looked at each other. They always felt that with their state eating the tree of might fruit was a kind of waste. However, since Ayaka let them eat, they did not refuse. In addition to himself, Mr. Popo also ate 1 each. The remaining 8, Kami intended to save it well, just in case. You gave us 10 fruits, so do you have any more? I have already eaten a lot with the girls, and excluding the 10 I still have 80 here, completely enough. Ayaka said with a light smile. Although the tree of might fruit was important, it was not that useful for people with more than 5 million power levels. After all, the essence of a planet's life was divided into hundreds of fruits, each one contains not much. The senzu beans was more critical. The difference was that the spirit tree fruit was significant in the early utility stages. The senzu beans were significant in the later stages. Launch, look at Shinran, let's go down. Ayaka shouted. And jumped from the lookout, quickly disappeared into the clouds. The girls followed closely behind, also jumped down. Looking at the 3 who disappeared into thin air, Kami shook his head with emotion. Ayaka's encounter is really remarkable. Such a fruit can let them come across. Kami. Mr. Popo shouted softly. Kami nodded, a smile appeared on his wrinkled face. Their strength is unfathomable, surpassing us too much. Now is the time of the young. After handing over a red tree of might fruit to Mr. Popo, Kami turned his head and walked toward the lookout door. Sooner or later, the young man called Son Goku will also go to the lookout. Being too much behind the young man will be a disgrace. Kami and Mr. Popo thought in their hearts at the same time. At the sacred land of Corinne, a fat country boy carrying a seriously injured teenager arrived in the dust, scraping up thin smoke behind him. Although there were many changes from the original story, the plot's trajectory still let the seriously injured Son Goku met Yajirobe. Hey, is there really good food on that tower? Little fatty Yajirobe asked suspiciously. The seriously injured Son Goku barely opened his eyes and said thoughtfully, yes, there is a treasure called senzu beans on the Corinne Tower. Eating 1 is equivalent to eating the same as 10 days of food. Senzu beans. 1 is equivalent to eating 10 days of food. How delicious that should be. Yajirobe drooling, eyes shining. If he knew that the senzu beans were just dried beans and did not have any taste, what would he think? Of course, Son Goku caused Yajirobe to had no idea how many senzu beans had been spoiled in the later stages, and it hurts to think about it. Later, Son Goku and other Dragon Ball fighters were considering the senzu beans to be highly precious. They were even eager to break a senzu bean in half to eat. It was now the negligence caused by the disaster. Go up. Yajirobe held Son Goku tightly. His body forcefully leaped upward and immediately disappeared into a black dot high in the sky. Korin Tower was sheltered by divine power, and only those who climbed with their strength could reach the top of the tower, which itself has an outrageous height. Yajirobe carried Son Goku to climb upward along. After half a day, Yajirobe felt exhausted but had not yet reached Korin Tower's top. "Hey, Son Goku, how high is this Korin Tower, why haven't we reached it yet?" Yajirobe complained. "Oh, soon. In a short while we will reach the top of the tower." Son Goku was seriously injured, so it was hard to speak. "Humph." Yajirobe grunted unhappily. If not for the legendary delicacy, he would not want to suffer this. After another long time, Yajirobe, who was already panting, finally saw a spherical endpoint a few hundred meters above. Ha! Yajirobe threw Son Goku on top of the tower, climbed up himself with difficulty, and then lay on the ground panting heavily. In the distance, Korin had long noticed them, leaning on crutches to come over. Yajirobe was startled to see a fat white cat approaching. However, Korin did not pay much attention to him. He came to Son Goku's side and took out a senzu bean and stuffed it into Son Goku's mouth. He chewed the senzu bean, and warm energy generated in the body, his body's injuries immediately improved. Son Goku opened his eyes. His body leaped from the ground, and he began to move his arms and legs. Everything is restored. Thank you, Korin. Son Goku gratefully bowed to Korin. Korin stroked his beard, nodded, and said, "Goku, I saw all the things on Earth, you actually almost defeated Demon King Piccolo. These 3 years you worked very hard to train. Please, Korin, teach me the way to defeat Demon King Piccolo." Son Goku's eyes said seriously. Korin shook his head and refused, "Your growth has exceeded my expectations, I have nothing to teach you. How to defeat Demon King Piccolo can only rely on your own." "Is there really no way to defeat Demon King Piccolo?" Son Goku's face hung disappointment. Son Goku could not help but think of Ayaka. Her strength was much stronger than his. If she was here, she could definitely defeat Demon King Piccolo. Hey, Son Goku, where are the senzu beans you said?" Yajirobe interjected with dissatisfaction. Son Goku looked at Yajirobe, then said to the Korin, "Yajirobe sent me up, I promised him to give him some senzu beans." Korin nodded and took out a small jar with senzu beans. Yajirobe saw senzu beans, thinking of what Son Goku said when he tempted him. His eyes were shining. He grabbed the senzu beans and stuffed them into his mouth, there were dozens of them. "Hey, you cannot eat so many senzu beans at once." Son Goku whispered a reminder. Unfortunately, it was already too late. Yajirobe was propped up into a ball by senzu beans and fainted. Ugh, what a disgusting guy. Korin licked his paws and did not bother about his death. He walked to a water tank, looked through it to the lower realm, and said to Son Goku in a gloomy tone, "Demon King Piccolo has started to plague the earth." Many people learned the news of Demon King Piccolo's appearance through the TV, and now the panic on Earth has started to spread, and chaos has appeared in many places. He also sent his subordinates around to kill martial artists. Many martial artists have been killed. Then how about Grandpa Roshi and them? Son Goku asked in a hurry. Korin looked up and said, "Don't worry, Roshi has long since taken a group of people to hide on a safe island. The disciples of the Crane School are also around." "Well, Goku, there is a way to make your strength increase greatly, but there is great danger in this method." "What method is it?" Son Goku's eyes shone. As long as he could defeat Demon King Piccolo, he would try even greater dangers. Sacred water. Sacred water is not like ultra-divine water, it is something that can really stimulate the potential, but the danger of super god water is too high. If ordinary people drink it, it is like drinking poison, just a small amount of a few drops can make them die. Corinne didn't know if he was right or wrong to say about the sacred water. In the original story, it was a compulsion, and now there were several people who could defeat Demon King Piccolo. If your sister knew, she would blame me. Corinne, where is the sacred water? This is it. Corinne turned out a clay pot from the secret room with a divine word. Goku, you really want to drink it? This is very dangerous. Corinne repeatedly mentioned the danger of sacred water. Son Goku did not pay much attention, poured a small cup of sacred water, and, ready to drink it. It's better not to drink the sacred water. The young girl's voice came, and the next moment 3 beautiful figures appeared on Corinne Tower. Ayaka stretched out the cup, preventing Son Goku from drinking the sacred water. Sister. Son Goku shouted in surprise when he saw Ayaka. Oh, you can't drink the sacred water, it will kill you. Ayaka said with a smile. She took the sacred water and nodded to Corinne. Corinne, long time no see. Phew, Ayaka, it's been a long time. You're coming and going more and more. Corinne narrowed his eyes to look at Ayaka. He keenly felt that Ayaka and the girls were more mysterious than they were 3 years ago. Since you're here, Goku won't have to risk his life to drink the sacred water. Ayaka laughed, I just came down from above. I will leave it to Goku to handle the matter of Demon Piccolo. Well, Goku's strength is still a bit short, but no need for the super god water, I have something better. She said and pulled out Tree of Might fruit from her pocket and threw it to Son Goku. Son Goku reflexively caught the fruit and asked in confusion, what is this fruit? This is the Tree of Might fruit. It can develop human potential depending on the situation. The effect is countless times better than the sacred water, and there are no side effects. Ayaka explained. Hearing what Ayaka said, Corinne was startled and said in his heart, as expected of Kami, there are so many good things. Is it that amazing? Once Son Goku heard it, his eyes put out a brilliant light. He stared at the fruit in his hand, examined it for a while, then sent it to his mouth and ate it in 2 or 3 bites. Soon, Son Goku felt his whole body heat up, as if countless air currents were surging in his body. An inexplicable force kept surging out from his muscles, and his body was full of strength. Wow! Son Goku shouted excitedly. The ki in his body kept getting stronger, surging out. Corinne looked at the teenager in shock. In just a moment's work, he sensed that Son Goku's ki had actually risen by more than double. The Tree of Might fruit is working. How much will Goku's strength increase? Launch said with a smile. Ayaka shook her head, not sure. Goku is still weak, the fruit should be able to at least double his power level. Well, it can reach more than 500, a few hundred amount is not much. If it was not more than a small amount, it was simply a waste of Tree of Might fruit. Roar! Son Goku roared. His body's ki seemed to condense into a huge ape, excitedly venting. The effect of the fruit slowly presented, and his power level finally stabilized at 527. Ayaka had been delighted with this effect. Son Goku's strength now fully reached the degree of the beginning of Dragon Ball Z, and even some beyond. It was just unable to gather ki to 1000 power level like Z, but it was more than enough to deal with the 260 power level of Demon King Piccolo. Upon feeling the surging power in the body, his body had inexhaustible strength. Son Goku excited, sister, that fruit is really too powerful. I feel much stronger. That's for sure. Your current power can kill your old self with a slap. Lancey said with a glare. Hee, Son Goku laughed happily, seemingly not realizing the preciousness of the fruit yet. Well, Goku, with your current strength, can easily defeat Demon King Piccolo. However, Demon King Piccolo killed Shenron, and there was no way to resurrect those humans who were killed because of Demon King Piccolo. Corinne walking back and forth with a cane then glanced at Ayaka. He pulled out a string of bells, you are already qualified to advance to the lookout. This bell is a credential to the divine realm. When you defeat the Demon King Piccolo, you can go to the Divine Realm. Kami created Shinran, so can you resurrect Shinran if you see Kami? Son Goku took the bell in surprise. You could say that. Korin glanced a few times at Ayaka, who looked blandly. He should have said that the old Kami created Shinran with his Namekian abilities and that the position of Kami didn't create Shinran. Great, so everyone can be resurrected. Sisters, Korin, I go first to find the Demon King Piccolo. Son Goku shouted and jumped off the Korin tower, riding the flying nimbus toward Demon King Piccolo's key. Goku, don't forget to bring the power pole when the time comes. Otherwise, you can't go to the Divine Realm. Korin pounced on the top of the tower fence side, loudly commanded, but Son Goku had lost the trail. What a furtive fellow. Korin muttered, then looked at Ayaka, thinking that when Goku went up to the Divine Realm and met Kami, it would be interesting. Ayaka lightly leaned on a nearby stone pillar, squinted at Yajirobe, then said to the girls, well, Goku went to deal with Demon King Piccolo, we need go down to the world for a walk, to see an old friend. One of the Earth's seas, near fragmented and numerous small islands, was a relatively large island with a humble hut. A rooster-shaped weather vane on the small roof was constantly turning under the sea breeze. Nearly a dozen people were gathered in the hut, sitting around the television set intently watching the live report, which showed that Demon King Piccolo had stormed the Center City's mansion and was preaching fear to the public. This is bad. This evil guy Demon King Piccolo has become the king of the world, and his next goal is to destroy the capital of the West City. Yamcha indignantly banged his fist on the table. Bulma's face was full of panic and anxiety, what to do? My parents are living there. Being anxious also useless, it seems there is really no way. Even a guy as strong as Goku was defeated. Can no one defeat Demon King Piccolo? Violet, formerly Colonel Violet of the Red Ribbon Army, cried. Tien Shinhan, Krillin, and others couldn't help but silence. The look of resignation flashed across their faces. Demon King Piccolo was too powerful. Even if they joined forces, they could not defeat him. I do not know where Ayaka and the girls have gone. If they are there, we can definitely defeat Demon King Piccolo by joining forces. Oolong's body trembled when he remembered Ayaka's terrifying strength a few years ago. Yes, it is a pity that we do not know where they went to train. We completely unable to contact them. Master Roshi sighed. Because Son Goku killed Tambourine, Krillin did not die as in the original, and Master Roshi did not go with Tien Shinhan to collect the Dragon Balls. Instead, together with Bulma and others, Master Roshi hid the Kame house on a deserted island. Well, who is Ayaka and the girls you guys are talking about? It sounds like they are very strong and can defeat Demon King Piccolo. Never come into contact with Ayaka's Tien Shinhan, and Kaiatsu asked suspiciously. We're talking about Goku's sister. How do I put it? Not the real sister, but their strength is also very terrifying. 3 years ago when we met, they were very powerful. I think their strength must be above Demon King Piccolo. Thinking of the strength shown by Ayaka against the great ape transformation Son Goku when he first summoned Shinran, Yamcha and Bulma were both yearning, fearful. Tien Shinhan was amazed listening to the group about Ayaka's exploits, hearing you guys say so, I want to meet them in person. Unfortunately, it is impossible to contact them. Master Roshi took off his sunglasses. His expression was serious. Master Mateto sacrificed his life to use the evil containment wave to seal Demon King Piccolo. Master Roshi, please let me also go together to deal with the great Demon King. It is too dangerous for you alone. Tien Shinhan said seriously. Among everyone present, he and Master Roshi had the highest strength. Master Roshi's face looked grim. He refused, no, you cannot go. Your martial arts talent is excellent, and you can continue to break through in the future. This is too dangerous. We can't bury all our hopes. Tien Shinhan still wanted to say something but was stopped by the stern eyes of Master Roshi. Ah, everyone, come and see, Goku appeared on the TV. Oolong shouted, pointing at the TV screen. What? Everyone immediately gathered their eyes to the TV screen again. They saw an orange and red figure appear on the TV. Because the camera was far away, the figure appeared blurry. However, Bulma and others could still recognize it. It's really Goku. Why did he run to fight with Demon King Piccolo again? Son Goku was wearing a martial arts uniform on the screen and was fighting fiercely with Demon King Piccolo. The screen flickered, the camera could not quickly capture the two figures. Goku's strength seems to have become much stronger. He can actually fight with Demon King Piccolo to a draw. Krillin was full of surprise. Tien Shinhan and Yamcha nodded at the same time. Master Roshi's eyes unblinkingly glued to the TV. Well, that level of battle is indeed much higher than we thought, and both sides do not seem to use full strength. Horror. Just the footage in the picture makes people feel unsurpassed. I wonder how shocking it would be if it were live. Tien Shinhan stared at the television. The sound of a booming and visually stunning explosion made his head break out in a cold sweat. At this point, Master Roshi pointed to the TV. Look, Goku showed his strength. His attack speed is getting faster and faster. He was so powerful. Even back then, I'm afraid that Master Mateto was not as powerful as Goku now. Near the end of the battle, Son Goku clenched his fist and rushed up to the sky. The fist knocked Demon King Piccolo through. Demon King Piccolo spat out an egg toward the distance before dying. The giant egg's speedy flight soon disappeared traces. He won. Son Goku defeated Demon King Piccolo. Bulma happily knocked Oolong's head, tears of excitement emerged from her eyes. Krillin was also laughing and jumping up and down. Great, Demon King Piccolo was destroyed. Son Goku saved the world. Yamcha, Tien Shinhan, and other people had smiles on their faces. Once Demon King Piccolo died, the fear that hung over people's hearts immediately disappeared. People around the world ran to the streets to celebrate. Goku's strength has improved again. I have to catch up on my training. I can't be too far behind him, and I must beat him in the next World Martial Arts Tournament. Tien Shinhan secretly said. It was not terrible to fall behind. As long as there was a strong and unconquerable heart, you could definitely catch up. Master Roshi went out of the house, looking at the azure sky. At this time, his heart was extremely unsettled. His disciple eliminated Demon King Piccolo and saved the world. Now, he was thinking about it. How can Goku's strength improve so quickly? It's like a dream. What's that? In the distance, there were 3 black dots flying this way. Master Roshi wiped his eyes to make sure he didn't get misty-eyed. Someone is coming this way. The visitors were flying extremely fast, and the sea was brought up in 3 intense waves. Ayaka shook her hand at Master Roshi. Master Roshi, you actually moved the Kame house here, so we have to look for it. Master Roshi didn't think it was Ayaka and the girls. He calmed down and said, Ayaka, where have you been for the past 3 years? How come we can't get in touch? Then he looked at the 3 with a lustful face, thinking, a few years without seeing Ayaka become more outstanding. These 2 beside her is also a rare big beauty. Ayaka knew Master Roshi's usual problem. She didn't bother to pay attention to him and said indifferently, we went to a very distant place to train, and just returned. The group is here, right? She said and walked into Kame house. Bulma, Violet, Krillin, Yamcha, everyone, long time no see. Ayaka, you are finally here. Look, just now Goku defeated Demon King Piccolo to save the world. Bulma said. Ayaka smiled understandingly. The world had just emerged from the darkness, and everyone had a lot to say in their hearts. I'll go make some tea first. Violet stood up and walked to the kitchen. Now Violet was doing all the housework in the Kame house, replacing Launch's job in the original story. Tien Shinhan constrained to look at the new three. He looked unnatural, whispered to ask Krillin, "Hey, they are the people you just said, right? Are they very strong?" Krillin nodded hard, "I'm not too sure about the specific. It was Bulma and Yamcha who first traveled with Goku and they know better. However, in the last world first martial arts tournament, Ayaka was the champion." Speaking of the last world first martial arts tournament champion, Tien Shinhan had a deep impression, so it was her. What a big change. Indeed, these years Ayaka completely matured. She was 1.7 meters in height and was considered relatively tall. All aspects of development were outstanding and were considered a product of fine craftsmanship. The body was no longer considered a young girl. She was between a young girl and a young lady. The flowing hair added a few mature temperaments. Yamcha turned around to see Ayaka, smiled mysteriously at him. He stood there awkwardly. After a few people have explained, Tien Shinhan's mind had an intuitive understanding of Ayaka. She was labeled as beautiful, scary, and unrecruitable. Hey, Demon King Piccolo was destroyed, just collect the Dragon Balls to let the people who died because of Demon King Piccolo to revive. Everything will be back to the original, Tulong said with a small mouthful of ice cream licking, looking relaxed. Hey, you guys do not know that Shenron has been killed by Demon King Piccolo? Ayaka asked strangely. Everyone was startled. Oolong's ice cream suddenly slipped on the clothes, trembling asked, "You say, Shenron has been killed? That Dragon Ball no longer exists?" Yes, Demon King Piccolo summoned Shenron to rejuvenate himself, after which Shenron was killed, and now the Dragon Ball has become an ordinary stone. Then you can't make a wish anymore. Bulma showed a disappointed face. But you guys don't worry. Shenron is created by Kami, just ask Kami to bring back the Shenron. Launch suggested. Launch, how can Kami exist? Bulma asked. She did not believe it. How could Kami exist in this world? No, Kami exists. Goku eliminated Demon King Piccolo, so he qualified to go to the Heavenly Realm for training. He can make Kami recreate the Shenron. Time flew by, looking at the sky has darkened, and thought that Son Goku should be going up to the lookout. Ayaka said goodbye to Master Roshi. Everyone practice well. In the next 3 years Goku will be in the Heavenly Realm to practice. Don't be pulled down too much by Goku. With that, the three people flew up in the air and soon disappear into the sky. Master Roshi, Ayaka said Goku is in the Heavenly Realm to train, what does it mean? After Ayaka left, Krillin asked in confusion. Tien Shinhan and Yamcha also pricked up his ears to listen. The Heavenly Realm sounded like a remarkable place. Master Roshi took a deep breath, I cannot imagine that Goku has reached that level. He qualified to go to the Heavenly Realm. I've only heard Immortal Korin talk about the Heavenly Realm, that mysterious place above Korin Tower. Since Goku can practice in the Heavenly Realm, the one who instructed him to practice is the Kami. Everyone was shocked. Unlike the original, they had already been up there in the past few years at the Korin Tower. Also, they had received the instruction of the Korin, but now Goku could actually receive the instruction of Kami. Thinking about it made people envious. Goku, that guy is really surprising. 3 years later, I do not know how strong he will become. It looks like he will be left far behind again. Krillin said in awe and envy, and then everyone agreed to use the 3 years to practice well and surprise Son Goku at the next World Martial Arts Tournament. Watching everyone didn't get frustrated at all but inspired to fight, Master Roshi's face was extraordinarily bright. At the top of Korin Tower, Korin walked steadily on the curved sphere at the top of the tower with his walking stick, as if he was walking on the ground. Pointing to the golden groove in the center of the tower, Korin said, insert the power pole into the groove. The power pole is the key to the lookout. If you insert it into the groove and let the power pole grow longer and longer, you can reach the temple. Right, don't lose that pair of bells. That is the credentials to meet Kami. Son Goku nodded and did as instructed. He inserted the power pole into the golden groove, then shouted, "Power pole, grow longer." The power pole rod emitted red light and then quickly lengthened. Son Goku was amazed by the power pole rod carried into the clouds and soon disappeared. Korin stroked his beard, smiling lightly. Originally, I thought Rashi is the most likely to ascend to the heavenly realm, that's why I gave it to him, but, hey, when Goku sees Kami and the old Kami will be shocked. Wow, it's so fast I can't even see Korin Tower. Son Goku looked down and found that he could no longer see Korin Tower. The air around him began to become thin, with a feeling of breath-holding coming from his chest. After a while, large dense black clouds appeared overhead. That wasn't rain clouds because Korin Tower itself has been above the general cloud layer. As he continued upward, he encountered dark clouds that were specifically isolated from the barrier of the sky. Sinuous and swift lightning interspersed as if a dragon roared in anger. Snort. Bright lightning strikes his body, making Son Goku numb. The clothes on his body emit an unpleasant smell of burning. This area was a special space. The lightning and thunder inside was a test for those who sought to see Kami, and by passing through here, they could see the lookout suspended high in the sky. Meanwhile, Ayaka and the girls soon appeared in the lookout square. From the lookout, she already felt two not-so-weak ki. The old Kami and Mr. Popo had eaten Tree of Might fruit, and there was a great growth in strength. From the ki, the breakthrough of both of them was not small. The Tree of Might fruit was like a key, turning decay into magic, opening all of their accumulation at once. Old Kami's power level reached 870, while Mr. Popo reached 1156. Congratulations on your great advancement in strength. Ayaka smiled and blessed. The old Kami ashamedly said, "This is all the efficacy of the spirit tree fruit, taking the spirit tree fruit for us to eat, it is really a bit worthless ah." How? Your strength is very beneficial to the earth. The earth has produced many seedlings who are capable of going to the heavenly realm, so we should train them well. The old Kami laughed brightly. Ayaka is right. When the time comes, I will have to teach them well, so that the earth's practitioners are more powerful. Launch, go ahead and get ready. Goku will arrive soon. He needs a whole room in the lookout, and food should be prepared in large quantities. Launch sniffed, then went with Lancey to prepare the room. Below, Son Goku finally passed through the thick layer of dark clouds and had seen the red hemispherical lookout floating not far away. Duh! The power pole stick was accurately inserted into the golden groove at the bottom of the lookout. Son Goku climbed over along the side ladder and jumped onto the lookout in one leap. At one end of the lookout was a majestic and gorgeous palace with several rows of plants on both sides and a vast and spacious square in the middle. Knowing that this was the heavenly realm that Korin spoke of, Son Goku immediately took on a reverent mindset, and just like that, the barren and slightly monotonous lookout immediately became sacred. A strong breeze from on high blew in his face. At that moment, he saw Mr. Popo was standing not far away and ran toward Mr. Popo. As in the original, Son Goku was put down by Mr. Popo in 3 or 2 blows. Subsequently, Son Go met with the old Kami, who looked exactly the same as Demon King Piccolo. Son Goku, you defeated Demon King Piccolo to save the world, very impressive. The old Kami praised, but unfortunately, Demon King Piccolo has not died yet. He spat out an egg before he died, that is the incarnation of Demon King Piccolo, containing everything of Demon King Piccolo. Sooner or later it will harm the world again. For some reason, both Mr. Popo and I can't take direct action against Demon King Piccolo. So, for the next 3 years, Mr. Popo and I will give you good instructions as you defeat the newborn Piccolo. That's great. That's exactly what I plan to be taught by Kami. Son Goku said happily. I'm not a kami anymore. The old kami shook his head. To be exact, I am the old kami, now kami is someone else, soon you will meet her. At that moment, wearing a white female kami costume, Ayaka walked out. Son Goku was startled, his eyes boarded out. Sister, why are you here? Immediately after noticing Ayaka's attire with the kami symbol written on her chest, Son Goku opened his mouth wide in disbelief. He said, could it be that you are kami? Ayaka smiled and nodded and asked rhetorically, what do you think? I've been kami since 5 years ago. By the way, Launch and Lancey are now also in the lookout. Son Goku nodded. Although he was simple, it did not mean that he did not know the truth that it was good to have someone in the court. Since his sister was the kami, the next thing will simply be easy. With Son Goku's character, even if kami was a person he didn't know, he wouldn't hesitate to say his request. Sister, you can resurrect Shinron, right? Quickly let Shinron resurrect. Ayaka shook her head. Her gaze went to the old kami. I don't have the ability to resurrect anything, that is against the rules. Shinron is created by the old kami with his own magic power. We need the old kami to resurrect Shinron. Son Goku smiled and asked the old kami to help. The old kami smiled and nodded. To be honest, I originally did not intend to repair the Dragon Ball. At the beginning, I created the Dragon Ball just to give people on Earth courage and hope, but the result is that not many people will use it for good. Most of the people looking for the Dragon Ball just for personal selfishness. This time Shinron was killed, I also hesitate to let Shinron reborn. However, seeing that there are still pure people like you in the world, I finally decided to let the Dragon Ball come back to life. Mr. Popo brought the glass cover containing Shinron as instructed. The statue of Shinron inside had broken into several pieces. Mr. Popo took out the glue, quickly assembled the clay puppet of Shinron. It's fixed. Everyone stepped back a few steps. The old kami raised his finger, a crystal bright light flashed from between his fingers and shot at the glass cover containing Shinron. The glass cover flashed a few arcs of electricity, then Shinron turned into a bright light and flew to the lower realm. Originally, Dragon Ball had to have a year to turn into stone, but this time is special. Shinron just resurrected, so it will first fulfill the wish to let the people who were killed by Demon King Piccolo to resurrect, but after that Shinron will fall into a few years of slumber. The old kami said slowly. No problem, as long as the people killed by Demon King Piccolo resurrected, Shinron can sleep for a few years. No problem. Son Goku said. The next moment, the sky became dark. In the wasteland where Shinron was killed, the green-coiled huge Shinron shuttled through the clouds. The two eyes shone with a bright crimson light. All the people killed by Demon King Piccolo immediately resurrected, after which the 7 Dragon Balls scattered all over the world. Because this wish belonged to the overdraft, the next few years, the Dragon Balls would only be the rock state. Kame House was located on the island, Master Roshi and other people stunned looking at a dark sky. It looks like Shinron really resurrected, so Goku has met the kami. Krillin said incredulously. So there really is a kami in the world. The atheistic Bulma and Violet's original worldview was torn open. Tian Shinhan, who never knew the deeds of the Dragon Ball, asked in dismay, this sky is pitch black, is this the scene where Shinron appears? At the same time, people around the world found that those who had originally died had surprisingly come to life. This time, no matter whether theists or atheists, there was only one thought in their minds. God miracle. Well, Shinron has been fulfilled the wish, Son Goku, you rest first, tomorrow you start practicing. The old kami said, turned, and walked into the lookout. Son Goku, we have prepared a lot of good food. Go eat. Launch, who had prepared the food, came with a smile on her face. Is there a lot of delicious food? As soon as he heard that there was something to eat, Son Goku's eyes immediately glowed. His spirit was high, and his whole body became stupidly excited. Sure enough, he walked into the dining room, where dozens of delicious food had been laid out. Now, Son Goku has been practicing in the lookout for half a year. Under Mr. Popo and Kami's guidance, he gradually learned to control the burgeoning power and then constantly sharpen the foundation, allowing the mind to maintain an ethereal state. Ayaka also continued to exercise hard. Instructing Son Goku was completely assigned to Mr. Popo and Kami. With the Ice King Palace's help, the breakthrough in strength would be easy, but she still trained diligently for the sake of a solid foundation. In these 6 months, Lancy made the most progress. Due to her and Launch's physique connected, Lancy had a big breakthrough every time she practiced. Soon, she reached Launch's strength with a power level of 3 million. When the two strength wasn't much different, Ayaka also gave them the fusion dance from planet Metamor. The future merging of the two would definitely not be weak. Ha! Ayaka took a towel to wipe and walked out of the training room. Next, she went to the bathroom to rinse off. The water in the bathroom was infused with divine power, improving the body and letting the body bathed in divine power to maintain the best condition. After the bath, she walked to the lookout square. Son Goku was fighting with Mr. Popo. His body was light and agile, and the speed was as fast as the wind. The lookout was located at a high altitude, the air is thin and less oxygen. Strenuous exercise could easily make you dizzy, so there should be a strict method of training. I'm going to attack. Hearing Son Goku lightly shouted, his body was athletic and sensitive. He launched a series of rapid attacks on Mr. Popo, whose eyes were dull, but he always quickly took Son Goku's attacks. Boom! Mr. Popo shifted, suddenly appeared on the right side of Son Goku. He reached out his fist and hit him on the cheek, causing Son Goku to be knocked out and crashed into the shrine's big tree. Son Goku is like a sponge that absorbs water, it improves very quickly. Old Kami leaned on his divine staff and walked over to Ayaka, who smiled and nodded. Her flowing hair danced in the wind. In 3 years' time, Goku will have a great breakthrough, and Demon King Piccolo will not be his match. Speaking of Demon King Piccolo, Ayaka remembered the many masters of the demon realm. In the anime, Son Goku seemed to have entered the demon realm to save a certain country's princess. Considering this, Ayaka thought that to major breakthrough at this stage and the only way to transform into a Super Saiyan, she has to go to the demon realm. After all, the demon realm had countless masters and was a good place to train. Old Kami, I want to go out again to train. I have to bother you with the lookout and Goku. Ayaka said, embarrassed. The old Kami nodded. He had expected that Ayaka wouldn't be idle, so he smiled and said, I guessed you wouldn't settle down for sure. Don't worry, the lookout has me and Mr. Popo in it. This world is very treacherous, the stronger you and the girls become the more at ease we will be. Always think of danger. Since knowing the powerful existence outside the Earth, the old Kami couldn't help but worry about Earth's safety and security. They didn't have strong power, but the good thing was that Ayaka and the girl's strength was always reassuring. For the sake of the Earth, the stronger they were, the better. Oh, I will return when my strength has a big breakthrough. After getting the support of the old Kami-s, Ayaka called on Launch, Lancy, and everyone to say goodbye and then left the lookout. Upon flying at high speed in the air, the cool breeze blowing in the face, Launch puzzled, asked, Ayaka, you said the demon realm entrance does not seem to be this direction. This is not urgent, before going to the demon realm we need to go to see a person. Ayaka said with a light smile, but Launch did not understand, who are we going to see? Demon King Piccolo, or should I say, the newborn Demon King Piccolo. Demon King Piccolo, meet him for what? You're going to take a shot at destroying him? Lancy was surprised. Ayaka shook her head, her purpose was not to kill Demon King Piccolo. The newborn Demon King Piccolo and Demon King Piccolo were completely different, he would be an important player in the Dragon Ball world. The newborn Demon King Piccolo is not all evil existence. We have to induce him well, so that he can take the right path. Yes. We have to attract people for good, even the Demon King should be converted. Lancey agreed with interest. How fulfilling it was to teach the Demon King Piccolo a lesson. The three of them jokingly crossed a mountain range and got closer and closer to Piccolo. Just like in the original story, the newborn Piccolo was born in a small village and destroyed the entire small village. Now, time had passed half a year later, and Piccolo was still in the nearby mountains to practice. He used harsh techniques to train himself, and his goal was to become stronger and defeat Son Goku, to snow the shame of the demon race. One day, as usual, Piccolo came to the waterfall to exercise, wearing heavyweight clothing. Suddenly, he perceived three powerful Ki approaching him. The three Ki were incomparably scary and made him tremble. Damn, how can there be such powerful Ki? In addition to Son Goku, there are such masters in this world. My dream of ruling the world is a triple obstacle. Piccolo roared in anger. Here it comes. He saw three young girls descend from the sky. They exuded a chilling aura, and Piccolo broke out in a cold sweat. He made a defensive posture with a wary face. Wow, this is Piccolo. Okay, he's small. Little Piccolo, don't be afraid, sister will not hurt you. Lancey stared at Piccolo like a toy. Piccolo saw a dangerous look in her eyes. His body consciously took a few steps back. However, Piccolo was only born half a year ago, and his strength as Demon King Piccolo hadn't yet reached half a degree. At once, Lancey grabbed his hands. Piccolo struggled angrily, but the young girl's hands were firmly clamped like steel pincers, simply could not break free. Who are you and what is your purpose? Piccolo was forced to calm down and said. Lancey, don't tease him. Let him go. Ayaka said with a faint smile. Lancey let go of Piccolo, and Piccolo stayed standing without thinking about escaping. He was sensible enough to understand that there was no way to escape with his strength. Damn it! Piccolo heart indignant. His two sharp demon teeth rubbed against each other. You do not need to be afraid, we do not want to hurt you. Your current strength is too poor, so let us train you properly. With a peaceful face, Ayaka said words that seemed very scary to Piccolo. She then grabbed Piccolo's collar and lifted him up. It's over. Piccolo shuddered but resigned himself to his fate and did not resist. In the dark and scary canyon, a green-skinned figure was constantly being ravaged by the three girls. Bang! 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 The sound of impact echoed in the canyon. The birds in the nearby forest were startled and flew out of the canyon. The green-skinned Piccolo was covered in wounds, bleeding purple blood. Still, his eyes were stubborn and unyielding, constantly meeting the other side's fierce attacks. Such a day he had spent more than 2 months. Every day he was subjected to inhumane torture and often one-sided ravages. The beginning of life was worse than death to the current numbness to accept, the horror of the three girls deeply burned in the heart. Piccolo's strength had improved by leaps and bounds in just 2 months so that his heart felt still a little comfort. One day at noon, Ayaka packed up a little and then said to Piccolo, well little guy, your training will end here. We also have to leave, and the rest you practice it yourself. Piccolo's eyes flashed a glint of light, he didn't know whether to be happy or sad. Well. Ayaka threw out red fruit, Son Goku is receiving hard training, and your strength is still a lot worse. In the next 2 years or so, practice well, do not think about ruling the world is far bigger than you think. You should go to the 23rd World Martial Arts Tournament. Goodbye. Piccolo caught the red fruit. The voice just fell in his ears, but he found that the girls' figures had disappeared. Piccolo's eyes flashed a complex look, and he muttered, maybe this world is really big. The world is not so good to be ruled. After taking a bite of the fruit in his hand, he suddenly found amazing ki energy appearing in his body, this ki is so strong. Piccolo's eyes snapped wide. He unexpectedly finding his strength in a moment, became much more robust, and then swallowed the fruit in 3 or 2 months. What a strong power. Haha, son Goku, I can definitely defeat you. Is it really okay to give the Tree of Might fruit to Piccolo? Launch was flying in the air, turned her head, and asked. It's okay, let Piccolo realize how big the world is. He shouldn't presume to rule the world. He and Goku are back on the same starting line, let's see who's stronger in 2 years. Ayaka said with a self-effacing look. For the current Ayaka, Piccolo was no longer a problem. Even if she let him compete with Son Goku, there was no impact on the big picture. On the contrary, there were some benefits. The three speed up the flight and soon reached the Demon Realm entrance said in the anime. She pushed open the Demon Realm door, and evil and dark and with the smell of blood came. Ayaka entered the Demon Realm and then closed the door of the Demon Realm. What a dark feeling. Launch covered her nose. The Demon Realm's unique demonic power resisted the divine power in their bodies, making her somewhat uncomfortable. No matter how powerful the existence was in the Dragon Ball world, the soul would report to the other world after death. Only those who were killed by the demons would suffer eternal torment without transcendence. Ayaka nodded. She had the same feeling as Launch. The key of the Demon Realm made her dislike it. The Demon Realm space is extremely large. Compared to the other world is not very different, and there are many masters inside. A little carelessness is not allowed. This area is the area connected to the earth, so the strength is relatively weak. Ayaka's eyes glanced as she felt the key were very weak, she roughly judged the strength of this area. The main world of Dragon Ball was actually the world under the Kai framework, which contains the other world, hell, and heaven, and belonged to the banner of the Kai. According to the plot, that was the orthodox world. Although the Demon Realm was a completely different world system, technically, it was part of the Dragon Ball world. Just like a realm of the main world, the territory was not as big as the main world but had considerable independence. It was led by the King of the Demon Realm, the King of the Demon Realm, not the Demon Realm King, and had countless strong demons. Because the King of the Demon Realm's strength was comparable to the second Super Saiyan and even better than the full-bodied Cell, the King of the Demon Realm was considered very powerful and almost not subject to the management of Kai. After death, the King of the Demon Realm was a mess of goodness, which was an afterthought. First, find out the ruler of this area. Maybe we can get some useful information. With that, the three flew toward the strongest key in this area. It was key of 230 power level. If it was not predicted wrong, the opponent was King Shula that Son Goku had encountered. In the underground gloomy and dim palace, King Shula was sitting freely in the upper hall, leisurely and elegantly drinking wine. Under the stage, the dancers dressed in beautiful costumes, graceful and moving dance, on both sides of the countless ministers drink freely, laughter. This area was a bitter cold land, located in a remote corner. The strength was low, and their status in the Demon Realm was meager. There were very few masters who would fight here, such as King Shula, who was in charge of this area. Although he was suffering a bit, his life could be described as extremely free and leisurely. When there was nothing to do, he set up a banquet in his palace and invited his men to get away together. The only thing that brought trouble to King Shula was the intrusion of a human boy a few years ago. The boy was young but strong and once fought to a draw with King Shula and snatched a human princess from King Shula. Of course, that teenager quickly left without bringing shock to the reign of King Shula. My king, recently the nearby Garum's army is not very peaceful, does it want to make some moves? After drinking the wine, a tiger-headed demon opened his mouth and said, "Humph, but Garum's army has no masters, not enough to worry about. However, Garum's army should be careful to watch out, I heard that their King Garum's has a breakthrough in strength." King Shula's purple eyes flashed a trace of contempt, confidently said, "King Garum's breakthrough is no match for this king, do not pay attention to them." Unfortunately, we have a harsh environment here. If very few powerful warriors appear, the masters are not even looking at this place. The strength is far less than the great powers in the distant world. King Shula had walked in the distant regions when he was not dominant. There were many masters there, and he knew that those places were not places he could mix away, which was why he came to this bitter cold land. Sighing helplessly, King Shula drank his cup of wine in one gulp. Steeply, King Shula inexplicably felt a chill, then 3 young and beautiful young girls appeared on top of the hall. Their pairs of beautiful eyes sweeping around. Maters. King Shula's heart trembled violently. Upon seeing 2 beams of deep and dark gaze cast, his body temperature seemed to drop by 10 degrees all of a sudden. Absolute masters, countless times more powerful than the human teenager last time. Humans. Numerous demons shouted out of breath, then murmurs rang out in the hall. Humans and demons still look very different, so the demons present instantly recognized Ayaka and the others as humans. A tall and mighty demon angrily scolded, "How dare the human race enter the demon realm? Take them down. Hold it." King Shula hurried to stop, ordered his subordinates to retreat. Instead, he got up and came to the 3. The opponents certainly masters, not some people they could offend. King Shula lowered his posture and cautiously said to the young girl, "I wonder what the 3 of you need help with." For King Shula's low-profile question, the subordinate demons couldn't help but be amazed. Could it be that these 3 young girls have a great deal to offer, especially the demon who just voiced out a rebuke was sweating like rain? "Are you King Shula? This area's strength is not bad." Ayaka glanced at the purple-haired demon in front of her. Since King Shula put his posture so low, she did not intend to make things difficult and said, "We just entered the demon realm and need you to provide some information about the demon realm." "With great pleasure." King Shula's stiff face squeezed out a smile and told what he knew. The demon realm is vast, and only few people know exactly how big it is. I am in charge of the kingdom located in a remote area of the demon realm, and there are the Garum's army and King Garum's nearby. King Shula talked slowly and very carefully about the demon realm state. Ayaka listened and generally understood the demon realm. Here was located in a remote, harsh environment, and was a relatively inferior territory of the demon realm, belonged to the periphery of the demon realm. According to the strength, the ruling demons were divided into Dark Demon Realm, Greater Demon Realm, and Lesser Demon Realm. The Lesser Demon Realm were generally the same as the remote corner of the territory ruled by King Shula. The strength was very weak, while the Dark Demon Realm was strong and rich. The Dark Demon Realm was completely under the rule of the King of the Demon Realm, Dabura. The strength was the most terrifying. Generally understand the demon realm situation. Ayaka and the girls glanced at each other and instantly moved away from King Shula's palace. The moment Ayaka left, King Shula gasped. He felt drained, as if he was going to collapse. Ayaka gave him too much pressure. Just standing there without moving made him sweat and palpitate, and unknowingly his back was already wet. "My king." King Shula shook his head. His purple eyes swept mercilessly and ordered, "The strength of the opponent is too terrifying. Forget all the things that happened today and do not allow half of it to leak." "Yes." The crowd of demons answered in unison. King Shula nodded blandly, then continued the banquet. The way to get away was the same, but his mind was not on the wine, song, and dance. A few powerful human girls come to the demon realm for what? I'm afraid that such strength can have a place in the lesser demon realm. Leaving King Shula's territory, Ayaka and the girls left the lesser demon realm. They entered the dark demon realm after several consecutive transients. Once inside the dark demon realm, Ayaka felt different. The surrounding soil or air was incomparable to the periphery, not far from the dense and thick canyons. Powerful ki came from everywhere in the mountains, and there were hundreds of ki of tens of thousands of combat power alone. Breathe the air with the rich aromatic grass smell, Ayaka sighed, it really is not comparable to the lesser demon realm. Not to mention the strength and resources, the air is too different. No wonder King Shula dominate that corner of the land for so long. Fortunately, with a little strength, the demons simply do not care about the lesser demon realm. The rich resources and fierce competition, this strong competition atmosphere has created a large number of demon realm masters. The demon masters in just one mountain range far exceed the high-level planet. Launch said with gloomy eyes. The human advanced planet assessment required having a power level of more than 10,000. However, a mountain range in the dark demon realm had hundreds of power levels over 10,000. This is natural. The North area and even the entire galaxy is just a drop in the ocean of the many galaxies on Earth, while the demon realm is not worse than the entire Earth, the dark demon realm's masters is not surprising. Ayaka understood now about the Dragon Ball world. The Kai governed the entire universe, including the other world, hell, and heaven. Under countless similar galaxies, the number must be huge, and a large galaxy was managed by the respective Grand Kai and the 4 Kai. Kai was called King of Worlds, so did the number of Kai and Grand Kai be small. The demon realm was certainly the world under the management of Kai, but the special thing was the king of the demon realm. Dabura's strength was no less than that of the Kai. He created the statue of the king of the demon realm and the independence of the demon realm, and the strength of the demon realm under Dabura's rule was, of course, extremely terrifying. Launch, Lancy, in the next 2 years or so, we separate for training, and strive to use 2 years to make great progress in training. After that, you have to patrol the north area for Kai, your strength must be enhanced. Ayaka said solemnly. The two nodded seriously. There and Ayaka's strength already had a big gap and somewhat unable to keep up with her progress. Ayaka was going to the field that was not suitable for them to go. Only by separating could they become stronger. The 3 agreed to leave the demon realm together in 2 years. Then each separated and flew in different directions. The purple moon was in the sky. Under the light moonlight, Ayaka flew fast, covered with a light yellow glow. Op! A beam of light swept by, leaving a faint as jade-like crystal-clear haze. Ayaka was flying in the air, her body constantly sensed the powerful ki around. As she stepped more and more into the inner circle, the surrounding demon's strength became stronger and stronger. Hundreds of thousands, millions of power-level demons were directly skipped by her, picking those on the strength of 10 million demons. Just a few months, the strength of more than 10 million masters lost under Ayaka had been no less than 100 people. She had gradually approached towards the junction of the lesser and dark demon realm. There are masters, and not just one. Sensing powerful ki coming from the left, Ayaka made a slight adjustment and flew straight towards that ki. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to keep you updated for future uploads.